ethereality was complete. The light within it began to dim, and its appearance became ordinary. Chen did not give the fruit of ethereality a single chance to disappear from the world. He reached out and grasped it, and in less than 10 seconds, he had swallowed the fruit like an animal devouring its prey. Shortly after, a sense of ethereality began to effuse through him, emanating a celestial aura around Chen out of nowhere. The discomfort from jumping off the cliff a while ago seemed to have vanished within seconds. Fabulous! Chen couldn't help but scream. In that moment, he felt as if the heavens were giving him a massage. It was comfortable to the extreme. He could even feel some kind of metamorphosis happening inside him. Very clearly, too. The wind in the valley no longer felt ordinary, but livelier and more effervescent than ever before. A unique, light blue stream of air slowly entered his senses. Is this ethereality? As he perceived the distinguished streams of air, Chen felt as if a door to a whole new world had opened up before his eyes. With the shift in his thoughts, the streams of air entered his body like rivers flowing into an ocean. In that moment, Chen felt some switch inside of him being turned on as ethereality began spilling into his limbs and bones like a deluge that had unleashed from the dam, changing him with energy from head to toe. This process went on for a full 2 hours. When the first ray of daylight appeared at the edge of the sky, Chen finally opened his eyes. The world before him had become so much more vivid and exuberant. Chen could even see the small, fine stones 1,000 meters below the cliff. Such vision could be compared to that of an eagle. The immense energy in his body made Chen feel as if he could climb the steep walls of Blackwind Cliff with ease. The practice of martial arts is only an enhancement of skills. It cannot surpass the limits of mankind. Cultivation, however, is an enhancement of life status. The two of them are not at all on par with each other. As he sensed the changes inside him, Chen came to realize some things. Shortly after, his back shuddered slightly, and he sprung straight from the vine, holding onto the sheer precipice of the cliff. A few minutes later, Chen was standing on the edge of Blackwind Cliff once again. At this moment, his state of mind was completely different from what it had been last night. Looking at the bottomless valley, not only did he not feel fear, he even had the spectacular feeling of being on top of the world. Host, you have completed the achievement of finding a big opportunity through the system for the first time. The tracking radius has increased from 10 meters to 15 meters. Chen's lips curled into a small smile when he heard the notification in his mind. He watched the sun rise in the distance, standing with his hands behind his back. System, let me ask you, who in the nearest 15 meters has the highest status of cultivation? It is you, host. Your current status of cultivation is the first tier of Qi training. Good, very good. Chen praised himself. Before this, the county magistrate had been the only person in Sichuan County with some cultivation. Unexpectedly, he had risen as the second person in Sichuan County with cultivation. Now that he recalled the people who were fighting last night, he found them rather ludicrous, as if it had been a group of children fooling around. That Lord Zhang must have run away. Chen looked around, not finding even a drop of blood or a single bloodstain. When he was dangling from the cliff wall last night, he had come up with his own conclusions because he could hear the sound of anything falling. In fact, it would be quite unreasonable if he did not manage to run away. Lord Zhang had been granted such an opportunity, so how could he have been so easily finished off by a handful of killers? He did not think about it any further. Chen walked to the tree where he had hidden last night, grabbed the wok and the spatula, and quickly took off, running in the direction of Stone Village. Last night, it took him 2 whole hours of running while being chased by wild wolves to reach Blackwind Cliff in a half-dead state. However, today he saw the stone tablet at the entrance of the village after just half an hour of running. He wasn't even breathless and/or puffing his cheeks. It was a breeze to him. As he looked at the wok in his hand and the stone tablet in the distance, Chen couldn't help but laugh. The wok was still that same old wok, and the village was still that same old village, but he was no longer the ordinary man he had been last night. As soon as Chen reached the village, he saw a couple of men on horses. Looking at the men on the horses, Chen thought to himself, they're already here? So impatient. At the same time, his steps quickened, not taking him long to reach his house. At this time, many people had gathered by the door of the house, including a few constables in uniforms. The body of the killer from yesterday had been removed from the ancestral hall and placed in front of the door. A constable with a mustache was checking the body with a knife on his back. Chin quietly blended into the crowd, watching the scene before him. The pig killed him? That's nonsense. I have hunted for many years, and I've never heard of domestic pigs killing anyone. The mustached constable sneered, touching the collapsed chest of the corpse. Hearing his unkind tone, Chin knew that these men did not mean well. Upon looking into the crowd, he immediately noticed an older man dressed in traditional clothes, pale and beardless. He was looking at the body with a gloomy expression. Chin knew this person. He was the steward of the Wang family. Named Wang Er, he was responsible for collecting land rent over the years. So the killer from last night was sent by the Wang family. Chin thought to himself. He had just been guessing last night, but now he was almost certain. It was easy to understand why Wang Er wore an ugly expression on his face. In all likelihood, this man had come with the constables to collect his family's bodies. He hadn't expected to see the killer's dead body when he arrived. His expression couldn't have been very pleasant. I think this is a traveler who was passing by. He probably just wanted to spend the night, but this family had evil intent and killed him. Wang Er said in a strange tone. Of course he had recognized the body. He had hired the man himself. The job had cost him a few dozen taels. Now that the waste of space was dead, he had to find some way to squeeze some value out of it. The mustached constable's eyebrows rose at those words. Although he had already been bought off by the Wang family, Wang Er's story sounded too fake. Traveler? Were there travelers who wore ninja clothes? Steward Wang, if there are travelers passing by in the village, they usually stay at my house. It's much bigger. Nearby, the village chief squeezed out a smile. Yes, Chin Shan's family is in the middle of the village. It's impossible for a traveler to go to his house. Besides, he is not dressed like a good person. He deserved to die. Some villagers stated. Wang Er's face became uglier when he heard that, shouting angrily, "You fools, what do you know? If you don't look vicious when you are out, what would you do if there was a bad guy?" Wang Er's irrational words caused an uproar. At that moment, a young man ran up from nearby, shouting as he ran, "Village chief, I found out the identity of the dead man. His name is Wei Laosan. He works for the gang leader in the county, killing for a living." Upon hearing this, all the villagers looked at Wang Er strangely. Wang Er felt his cheeks get hot, but he maintained his tough stance. Can someone who specializes in murder be killed by this village? Or is there someone powerful amongst you pathetic lot? What a joke. The mustached constable quickly winked at Wang Er, pasting a smile on his face as he said to Chin Shan, "Chin Shan, you look like a decent person. How about this? Your family will go to the government office with me to clear up this mess. If the deceased really was a bad person, the county government could potentially even reward your family." Chin Shan answered in a huff, "My son left home last night and has not returned. I won't go anywhere until he returns." Wang Er's expression changed drastically at the words. "That of yours ran away. How dare he?" Wang, whose order was to kill this entire family, but now that one had run away, what should he do? The next moment, he seemed to have thought of something, his tone suddenly becoming fierce. "I think he killed this man, then ran away in fear. Why would he run out in the middle of the night otherwise?" The constables nodded in agreement. Wang Er had finally said something that could stand scrutiny. "You're saying nonsense. My son is innocent. He wouldn't kill a chicken in the village. How could he kill a person?" Chin Ro shouted angrily as she tried to explain. In her eyes, Chin had always been good-natured ever since he was a kid. He was the most sensible child in the world. How could such a well-behaved child kill anyone? Innocent? Huh. Who knows what he is thinking? If he didn't kill him, why did he run away in the middle of the night? Constable Zhou, now that the little has murdered someone and escaped, I suggest we issue a warrant immediately. As for these two untouchables, since they protected the criminal and allowed him to escape, they should be arrested immediately and put in prison. As Wang Er spoke, he quickly bowed his hands at the mustached constable. This time, he was so confident, his sinister face actually looked a little righteous. However, as soon as he stopped talking, a wispy voice spoke up. "What? I left for a little while. Now I'm a murderer? Steward Wang, I don't deserve that charge." When the villagers heard his voice, they realized that Chin had somehow been standing amongst them. The village chief also looked surprised. He had watched Chin grow up, but the young man's temperament today was completely different from before, so much so that he did not notice Chin earlier. You. The righteousness on Steward Wang's face disappeared without a trace. He pointed to Chin angrily, unable to speak. Didn't they say that he had left last night and hadn't come back? Were they all fooling him? Qinshan ignored him. He quickly walked up to his parents and comforted them. Father, mother, it will be fine. Little Chun, you shouldn't have come back, Qinshan sighed. Wang Er may have been defeated now, but to a powerful family like the Wangs, having their entire family killed off was effortless. He was just saving face and not pushing them to the edge yet. If I don't come back, you'd have been left behind. I couldn't do such a thing. Qinshan grinned, as if he wasn't taking this situation seriously. Qinshan and wife were touched, sighing at his response. Seeing that Wang Er wanted to say something else, Constable Zhou interrupted the moment. Well, since all three of you are here, you can all come to the county's government office with me. When we get there, everything will be cleared up. He really couldn't stand Wang Er as a teammate. He was too pig-headed. If he let Wang Er continue, he'd be ashamed of himself. They were just tenant farmers. They'd be theirs to punish at the government office. If they didn't want to wait, the Qin family could even be killed on the road, and they could put the blame on bandits. There was no point in trying to reason here anymore. Wang Er understood Constable Zhou's meaning, snorting coldly but not speaking anymore. He looked at Qinshan's family as if they were already dead. These untouchables really didn't deserve any more of his effort. Qin Ro looked at her husband subconsciously when she heard the constable. Qinshan frowned, unable to decide for a while. Qinshan, however, smiled and said, "Okay, we will go to the government office with you." Constable Zhou patted Qinshan on the shoulder, praising him. "Young man, you're quite reasonable. Your future is unlimited." He said this even though his mind was filled with contempt for Qinshan. He has no future with this IQ. He deserves to be a farmer for life. Oh wait, haha. Now he can't even do that. After a moment, the constables and their horses led Qinshan's family toward the entrance of the village. Wang Er creeped behind them, a vicious glint in his eyes. Qinshan and Qin Ro saw everything and worried. On the other hand, Qinshan seemed carefree. He shouted out to Arya, who was in the crowd, "Arya, help me feed Lao He. Don't let him go hungry and lose weight." "Brother Qin, don't worry," Arya answered shyly. Her eyes were also filled with worry. Qinshan smiled at her reply. He followed the constables and walked toward the front of the village. Today, he would see what show these people would put on. A few minutes later, after the group had left the entrance of the village, Wang Er couldn't wait anymore. He walked from the back of the group to the front, whispering to Constable Zhou, "Master Wang said this family must be taken care of." When Constable Zhou heard the words, he calmly replied, "We need to talk about the price, though. You told me before that we were just here to collect the corpses. That isn't a problem, but they must be taken care of on the road," Wang Er said harshly. The backstory of the Wang family was a bit disgraceful. If the Qin family was brought to the government office in the county, it would not be good for their nonsense to get out. It was better to take care of them on the road and prevent any further mishaps. A strange glint flashed in Constable Zhou's eyes as he said, "Killing on the road. The price is even higher. After all, it's not a righteous thing to do." "No problem," Wang Er replied without any hesitation. Their Wang family had plenty of money. "Great. Then I will take them into the stone forest 5 miles away, and we will take care of them there." "Perfect," Wang Er responded and returned to the back of the group. When passing by Qinshan's family, he did not forget to glance at Qinshan as if he was already doomed. Qinshan sneered to himself. With his current hearing, he could hear the conversation between Wang Er and Constable Zhou very clearly. "Stone forest 5 miles away? Humph. None of them are good. Little Qin, I have a feeling that they were up to no good just now. If anything happens, I will delay them. Take your mother to grab a horse and escape. Don't look back. Do you understand?" Qinshan asked with a low voice. He looked as if he was ready to face death unflinchingly. As a man, he had no hesitation at this time. "Dad, don't worry. Maybe they are all good people." Qinshan smiled and comforted him. Qin Ro saw this and sighed to herself. Her son was perfect. His only flaw was that he was too kind. He didn't know that people could be evil. "Little Qin, there are many bad people out there. You have to be careful." Qin Ro rubbed her son's head, her face showing dismay. Where could she run to as a woman? If something happened later, she would, at most, distract those people and make it possible for Qinshan to escape. Qinshan gave his parents a relaxed look, then quickened his pace and wandered around the group. When Wang Er noticed this, closely following behind Qinshan, afraid he'd run away. "System, find me some bad luck. Like how I ran into the wolf last night. Walking 8 meters at 20 degrees ahead, you will step on a hidden pile of cow dung." Hearing this, Chen sped up and immediately walked forward in the direction shown by the system. His perception was keen, and after spotting the cow dung, he calmly stepped over it. Wang Er stared at Chen closely, quickening his pace once again without saying anything. After a while, he felt his feet become sticky. Looking down, he saw a pile of slimy cow dung covering his shoes. It was a dark blob and quite disgusting. DMN. So bloody unlucky. Wang Er cursed, quickly moving his feet away. When he looked for Chen again, the young man was back to walking with the group. Chen was amused when he heard Wang Er's cursing. Today, he wanted to let the old guy know what was truly cruel. After the group walked forward more than 100 meters, Chen left them again, with Wang Er closely following him once more. He thought he had stepped on the feces by accident and didn't suspect anything. Just as he took a few steps, the foot that had stepped on cow dung before stepped on something else. The combination made him suddenly slip, and he fell backward, sliding on dung. Today is so unlucky. Wang Er scolded himself in his heart, but he did not panic. As the steward of the Wang family, he knew some martial arts. When he leaned back, his body suddenly exerted strength, and he stood steadily on the ground with a beautiful backflip. The move was quite expert. If it weren't for the dung on his feet, it would be even better. However, the very next moment, he gasped as his face suddenly turned purple. He raised his foot and saw that there had been a sharp rock where he landed, now piercing his shoe and plunging into the sole of his foot. Bright red blood gushed out, and mixed with the dark dung, it looked even more disgusting. Ow, it hurts. It hurts. Wang Er's masterful demeanor disappeared instantly. He didn't care about the cow dung anymore. He picked up his foot and started screaming. All the constables were dumbfounded when they saw the scene. They had never seen anyone piercing their feet when they walked. And what was that dark blob? After constables realized what it was, they turned their heads in unison, not daring to look at it directly. It was so repulsive. Only Chen moved toward Wang Er with a concerned expression. "Steward Wang, are you all right? Maybe we shouldn't rush to the county government. Let's go back to the village and bandage your wound." Wang Er showed a fierce look when he heard those words. He roared, "This injury is nothing to me. DMN, if it wasn't for you untouchables, I would have looked at the almanac when I went out." Chen looked at the blood-stained stone and waved his hand earnestly. "Steward Wang, how can you be considered unlucky? Fortunately, it is just your foot that got hurt. If you had smashed and knocked your head, then what? You might have died young, right? You were so lucky." Hearing Chen's words, Wang Er's eyes flickered and his heart became full of fear. Had it not been for the backflip, he might have knocked his head, and if his head had been pierced by the stone, Wang Er didn't dare to think about it anymore, limping back to the group with a sullen face. At the same time, he promised himself he would be really careful when walking from now on. At the front of the group, Constable Zhou frowned when he saw this. He ordered, "Steward."
Thank you so much for the follow, Goku. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
"Steward Wang, there is a river in front of the woods. Go and wash up." He was taking advantage of the situation and using this as an excuse to bring Chen's family into the woods. "Right. Thank you, Constable Zhou." Wang Er bowed his hands in thanks but gasped again after saying this. The feeling of cow dung seeping into the wound was really uncomfortable, making him want to die. At this moment, he couldn't be bothered to follow Chen. He just wanted to go into the river to clean his wound, otherwise his foot might be done for. However, he didn't know that. This was just the beginning for him. For the rest of the journey, Wang Er was about as cautious as he could possibly be, constantly reminded of the massive pain. Finally, the team made it to the creek just before the stone forest. Wang Er immediately rushed to wash his wounds in the river, while all the constables laughed on the inside as they saw the scene. They had seen unlucky individuals, but this was a first. Xiao Chun, the stone forest is straight ahead. It's normally quite empty here. If they want to do something, they will do it here. But given the amount of thorns inside, it's impossible for their horses to go fast, so you have a good shot of escaping. If you are able to successfully flee, don't think of avenging anyone, okay? Just keep living on, do you understand? Chen Shan and his wife didn't have time to laugh about Wang Er. They knew very well what the stone forest was like. The only reason they didn't oppose Constable Zhou's proposal to go from there was because Qinshan had a much better chance of fleeing from here than anywhere else. A horse is a necessity to flee from other places, but how is robbing a horse an easy feat? Father, mother, don't worry. I will be good, you will see. Qinshan comforted them as he looked at Wang Er washing his wounds next to the river, a weird smile blooming on his face. One moment later, Wang Er was finally finished with his wound, and as he returned, he stared at Qinshan with an insidious look. While washing his wound, he found Qinshan more and more responsible for his injury. Were it not for the fact that this lad had been running around for no reason, why else would he be up to this? Since the stone forest was just ahead, he didn't want to hide anymore. With this in mind, he mouthed towards Qinshan, "You are done." Accompanying that statement was a ferocious smile. Qinshan pretended that he simply didn't see it. Instead, he looked up at the blue sky and white clouds, his face full of joy, as if he was going out for a trip. This made Wang Er even more infuriated. "Housekeeper Wang, let's go if you're done." Constable Zhou, who was leading the team, paid extra emphasis on the go, clearly hinting at something. Housekeeper Wang nodded angrily, following the group. This time, the lesson had been learned. Not only did he follow the group at all times, he paid extra attention to the ground, walking as carefully as one would on a single plank bridge. He just did not believe that he could end up with bad luck with such caution. In the grass, 8 meters left from the straight path, there is a wildlife trap. Behind the tree in front, there is feces from a wild wolf. Inside the forest, the number of messy items, such as the ones the system reported, immediately increased. However, Qinshan knew, just by looking at the caution Wang Er was practicing, that he was not about to run over any of them. Therefore, he didn't try to get Wang Er to leave the group, instead choosing to wait for better opportunities. There is a beehive 13 meters right of the straight path. Upon contact, it will fall down. Upon hearing the system's reminder, Qinshan immediately turned his head to the right. As expected, on a tree not too far away, there was a beehive. If they walked normally, they wouldn't touch the beehive in any way. But was Qinshan intending to let the group move normally? Clearly not. Qinshan secretly picked up a small rock on the ground as he walked, and as he got to the closest point from the beehive, he ejected the rock from his fingers. Paya! The beehive promptly fell. Bzzz. Hundreds of wasps, each about the size of a broad bean, poured out of the beehive and soon discovered the group. The constables could hear the weird sound, and upon looking at the source, they nearly got heart attacks. "Wasps! Run!" Constable Zhou shouted as he dashed away with his horse. At this point, he can't care for anything else. Wasps in forests were no easy feat. If one were to be attacked by a group of wasps, anything from disfigurement to death may end up occurring. No amount of money was worth such an expense. The other constables, seeing that their lead had fled, didn't worry about other things either, immediately following their leader and fleeing. And just like that, Qinshan's household and Wang Er had been forfeited. "Father, mother, quick, we need to move." Qinshan dragged his parents and ran behind the several constables as he spoke, leaving Wang Er standing alone and utterly confused. He also wished to run, but given his injured feet, he can't go fast enough. As he looked at the wasps flying towards him, Wang Er called out, "Wait for me." He tried to keep up with Qinshan's household, but his speed was inadequate, and he soon got caught up by the wasps. Soon, Wang Er's screams poured throughout the forest. "Father, shall we flee with this opportunity?" Qin Ro, seeing that nobody was attending to them anymore, can't help but ask. Qinshan, hearing her, was intrigued. "Father, mother, there is no need. We need to solve this problem anyway. It's fine if we go to the county office. Stone Village is our home, and we committed no crimes, so why run away? Also, Lao He is still at home. If we were to flee, Arya would not be able to have fully fed him." Qinshan laughed as he ran away. Several wasps tried to bite Qinshan and his wife, but under the force of Qinshan's stare, they promptly returned to target Wang Er. Cultivating immortality was a raise in the class of life. He was already able to create absolute deterrence against low-class organisms like wasps. Qinshan, after listening to this, wanted to speak up about something, but didn't. Qinshan waved his hands and said, "Father, trust me. You will be fine with me. Do you know why I left last night? Recently, I had dreamed about a fairy quite a bit. The fairy asked that I meet him at a specific spot. I disregarded it all as dreams for the last several days, but when I went there last night for a look, the fairy was indeed there." "What? Xiaoqian, you met a fairy?" Qinshan and Qinro were both very surprised. In their eyes, it was extremely unthinkable. Yes, why would I go out in the middle of the night otherwise? After meeting the fairy, I learned much from him. Trust me, I have enough power to protect you, Qinshin explained, looking serious. He couldn't make anything up other than this poorly fabricated lie. At this point, he had to expend the credibility he had accumulated over the course of more than a decade. He had to tell his parents about his immortality cultivation anyway. Sichuan County was just too small to make full use of the system. According to his plans, the best place to go was an area with fairy characteristics, with magnificent mountains and fine water. Using the system, he would most surely be on the right track. At that point, he would be away from the home. His only concern was his parents. Fairies. I can't imagine my son cultivating immortality. Chinro was very excited, her face reading, "My son is the best on earth." Qinshan remained silent, but he had a great deal of trust over his child, especially given his extended record of maturity. Of course, the main reason was that it wasn't the time for talking. Neither did either of the parents know anything about cultivating immortality. Several minutes later, the wasps were gone. The several constables who had run ahead had also returned. Constable Zhou's eyes showed surprise at finding out that Qinshin's household didn't just flee. "Where's housekeeper Wang?" a constable asked. Qinshin pointed not too far behind him when he heard the question. At that point, Wang Er was lying in the center of the path, his head swelling to the size of a pig's head and his body twitching non-stop. He looked as miserable as he could possibly get. Constable Zhou's eyes uncontrollably blinked as he took in the scene. This housekeeper Wang was not regularly unlucky. It was quite like Mr. Unlucky's mother opening the door for Mr. Unlucky, proper a touch base of unluckiness. Coughing, Zhou instructed them, "Let's get housekeeper Wang on horseback and send him to the county town for a diagnosis." Upon hearing those orders, the constables immediately moved to Wang Er's side and lifted him onto the horse. Wang Er, being hung on the horse, was only growing more and more infuriated. The target of his ire still Qinshin's household. Had it not been for the three of them running, he wouldn't have ended up like this. Thinking of this, his uninjured eye kept staring at Qinshin, as ferociously as it could possibly get. Qinshin shivered. This was so frightening. Wang Er was being hung on top of a horse, his swollen head making him look like a monster. The only human-like thing on his face was his one eye. And he was still staring at Qinshin. This shape, were it to be left in the haunted houses of his past life, hordes of children would have broken into tears. "Housekeeper Wang, are you fine?" Constable Zhou asked, coming closer. His true meaning was clear. Will you die? If he were to die, without a testifier in the wilderness, how could he get his money back after the business was done? Wang Er tried to speak, but his mouth was already swollen to the size of a pot. Therefore, he can only make rumbled sounds, not anything that could be understood. He angrily stared at Qinshin again, then turned his head to Constable Zhou for reassurance. Qinshin was quite amazed by this as he observed what was occurring. Housekeeper Wang was indeed the housekeeper of a major household. Even if he only had a single working eye, he could still express his intentions. An impressive person indeed. Seeing this, Constable Zhou became indecisive. At this point, he felt a sense of palpitation. Then, the horses screamed towards the sky. Before anyone could react, the horses dashed towards the depth of the forest as if they had gone insane. Hung on the back of a horse, Wang Er's face was too swollen for his emotions to be interpreted, but his eyes showed infinite depths of shock, confusion, and helplessness. Like a child dragged to a school on his first day of class, Wang Er vanished into the forest. Housekeeper Wang is being hijacked by the horse. Qinshin looked from afar, his face filled with sympathy. Constable Zhou finally understood the situation, yelling, "Run." Several minutes later, the group of people found the horses enjoying fresh grass deep into the forest. Meanwhile, Wang Er was lying below a horse, his neck distorted, and his breath gone. His only functional eye was filled with emptiness. He broke his neck and died? Constable Zhou's shock was unparalleled. A person with martial arts skills walking with him for a few kilometers and then getting killed by being thrown off of a horse after various accidents? Who would ever believe that? But the truth was here. The corpse was still warm too. Qinshin squatted down with a face full of sympathy, closing his eyes for Wang Er and sighing. Housekeeper Wang was fine in all manners, except for being a good folk. He had done too many bad things, and here is his retribution. Oh. Learning Qinshin's words, Constable Zhou's eyes showed signs of fear. He really had no idea how Housekeeper Wang could be up to such bad luck other than retribution. Housekeep Wong, don't think about killing that much in your next life. See? Even heaven can't take it. If heaven can't take it, no amount of martial arts will be of use. Chin Chin's seemingly unintentional words only brought more cold sweat to Constable Zhou's face. He had done quite some orders of assassination-related business, but in terms of martial arts, he wasn't that much better than Housekeeper Wong. Looking at Housekeeper Wong's miserable death, he felt like he was being hit by thunder. Was retribution a real thing? As he thought of this, he decided that he would be a good person from today onwards. Brother, let's go. At the county office, please do testify for us. That Housekeeper Wong died of bad luck, not due to our intentions. Constable Zhou walked beside Chin Chin, his tone somewhat shaky and his words much friendlier than before. Chin Chin stood up as he heard the words, smiling as he replied, "Certainly. Good civilians such as us never lie." Constable Zhou was already tossing away any remaining plans to assassinate Chin Chin's household. Sweating as he nodded, his face looked quite like a servant of the people. Chin Shan and Qin Ro were also staring at each other, trying to figure out what they had just seen, which was difficult to believe. Wang Er, who had been enjoying his authoritative power and exploitative joys for decades, had just died without any clear reasons? How could there be so many incidents in the world? After that, the group continued to move towards the county town, now with 2 corpses on horseback instead of 1. For the remainder of the trip, every single constable practiced the highest degree of caution. If one were to look at them without context, one may as well assume that those constables were targeted by criminals on the wanted list. However, no more incidents took place over the course of the trip. Everybody arrived at the county office without any further issues. The county magistrate was a person with high levels of cultivation. He would not show up without major businesses. Minor issues such as these were all handled by the workers within the county office. Upon Wang Er's death, nobody was willing to pay for Chin Chin's family to be assassinated, eliminating Constable Zhou's incentive. Additionally, upon seeing Wang Er's death, he had decided that he should be a good person. Therefore, he did not give any further difficulties to Chin Chin's family. After confirming Wei Laosan's identity as an assassin, he even awarded them a pennant that read "Eliminating Harms for the People," giving them extra praise on the way. Chin Chin's family returned to the stone village happily with the pennant. On the other hand, Wang Hu's face was about as grim as it could get as he looked at Wang Er, whose face was already unrecognizable. By asking Wang Er to get rid of that household, he'd already paid an exceptionally heavy emphasis. But then, in a mere day's time, Wang Er was lying dead in front of him, and in a way that not even his mother could recognize his face. "Father, how did Housekeeper Wang die? How can he be like this?" Wang Suqin angrily asked at his side. Wang, who was only more infuriated when he heard the question, tossing a piece of a silk book to Wang Suqin. "Look at it yourself. That's what the county office wrote on his death certificate." Wang Suqin grabbed the silk book, and as she continued reading, the fury in her eyes became nearly uncontainable. During the trip, Housekeeper Wang stepped on a piece of cow manure by mistake. Then, due to the aforementioned incident, a slip occurred. Housekeeper Wang flipped 360 degrees mid-air, and as he landed, he stepped onto a thin, sharp rock, injuring his foot. Later, inside the forest, he encountered wasps. Due to the aforementioned foot injury, Housekeeper Wang was unable to run away as fast as the others, therefore becoming severely injured by the wasps. After those severe injuries, the constables put Housekeeper Wang on the horse, intending to have him carried to the county center for treatments. However, the horses were suddenly frightened, dashing deep into the forest with Housekeeper Wang. Housekeeper Wang fell from the horse and broke his neck in the process, resulting in his death. This is ridiculous. What are those people in the county office doing? Do they think the Wang household is a household of idiots? Not even storytellers would dare to forge such stories. Wang Suqin tore the silk book apart as she yelled. Wang Hu, learning those words, puts on a fake smile. They must be using this opportunity to warn our household. Wang Er died due to a piece of cow manure. They are indeed experts on humiliation. Wang Suqin's expressions turned around several times as she heard this. A moment later, she sneered and said, "Last night, the gentleman of Zhang household was nearly killed in an assassination attempt. The 2 biggest households of the county are about to fight hard. They have a lot to keep them busy. By imposing such a warning on our household, it seems like they wish to stun us in order to prevent our involvement." Wang Hu nodded. After some careful thinking, he found this theory persuasive. "What about Chen Shan's family?" Wang Hu asked. "Tomorrow is the property rent collection day. I will visit the village myself. The county office will soon be in chaos. By refraining from the other two families' businesses, nobody can stop us, Wang Suqin said coldly. In the past, if they wished to kill some civilians, they had to do some amount of preparatory work to go through with that. But with Sichuan County on the verge of chaos, there was no need for that. The next day, people in Sichuan County were so rattled, they were running from their own shadows, not a single soul seen on the streets. All the constables of the county office had squared their shoulders, waiting for calamity to arrive. The Zhao family and the Zhang family had a long-standing feud. A few days ago, the son of the Zhang family had been murdered by assassins, which had detonated the strife between the two families. Last night, several violent fights had taken place on the streets between the two families, spilling blood everywhere. Who would dare to venture out in times like this? On the other hand, Stone Village wasn't quite peaceful either. There were a few dozen tall, burly horses at the entrance of the village, and every horse seated a robust guard from the Wang family. These people had battle knives on their waists, giving off an air of ferocity. They were nothing like the sidekicks that Lord Wang had brought with him previously. Village Chief, our second lady has arrived. Why haven't you come and received us? As the powerful bellow sounded, the village chief walked out timidly. Despite having lived for many years, he couldn't help but be terrified by the battle array before his eyes. In the past, the steward of the Wang family would, at most, bring several ordinary house guards when they came to collect the farm rent. What were they trying to do this year? A massacre? Welcome, second lady. The village chief bowed and cupped his fists, his attitude extremely humble and modest. All the villagers stepped out of their houses at that moment. Upon seeing so many newcomers, they were all frightened into silence. The chief remained bowed for a full minute. Only when he was so exhausted that he was trembling all over did a burly, white horse stride out slowly from among the crowd. On the white horse, Wang Suqin was clad in soft, red armor, her face icy cold and her eyes indifferent. Steward Wang has encountered an accident. This year, I have come over to collect the rent in person. I hope you won't make things difficult for me. Back then, Steward Wang only treated you with generosity and leniency because Sichuan County was peaceful. Now that riots have taken place in Sichuan County, our Wang family is not in good condition either. Therefore, the farm rent for this year will be increased by 50%. Right as Wang Suqin finished, a commotion ensued among the villagers. It did not matter whether Steward Wang really was generous or lenient. The point was, they had been victimized by the flood this year, and not a single grain had been harvested. In order to amass enough farm rent, they had gone bankrupt and were all in heavy debt. Worse still, the rent was increased by 50% this year. Wasn't she trying to push them to a dead end? The village chief was also infuriated by her words. With trembling hands, he retrieved a contract from his pocket. Second lady, we have been farming for the Wang family and the amount of farm rent has been decided from the start. How could you raise it at your own will? Before the village chief could finish, the contract was sliced into halves following the shriek of a sword. Wang Suqin sheathed her sword and spoke in a cold voice. I told you, Sichuan County is in deep chaos right now, and the rules have changed. I do not wish to reiterate words that I have spoken. The villagers exchanged glances upon hearing this, their faces turning pale. They had to be financially capable in order to afford the increment. There was no way they could make the money materialize out of nowhere. As though she had foreseen this, a guard beside Wang Suqin spoke up at that moment. The Wangs aren't trying to push you to a dead end. It is all right if you refuse to pay the rent. You just have to sign this deed and become slaves to the Wangs, and then this matter can be over and done with. The village chief began coughing vigorously upon hearing those words. The people of Stone Village were all farmers, but farmers were freemen, not slaves. However, if they signed the deed, they would become slaves to the Wang family. Their lives and deaths in total control by the Wangs. How could they allow that happen? We will go farm for the Zhaos and the Zhangs. Stone Village has always been a place for freemen. Why should we become slaves? Right. I do not want my child to be a before he is even born. Some young, high-spirited villagers shouted out complaints. The guard sneered upon hearing them, his eyes flickering with a cold gleam. The Zhangs and the Zhaos are engaged in a war at the moment. Do you think they have time to care about you peasants? Let me tell you, Sichuan County is in deep chaos right now. If you happen to run into any accidents on the way to the other families, no one is going to take care of you. The tone of caution in his words was obvious. The villagers who were speaking just now all fell silent, their eyes full of despair. The village chief was weeping bitterly. With a thud, he knelt on the ground, begging Wang Suqin, "Second lady, please show us some mercy. Some children in our village haven't even grown up. I can't let them be slaves to someone else from such a young age." Wang Suqin's eyes were filled with disgust as she listened to him. A group of lowly people picking and choosing all the time. Was becoming slaves to the Wangs such a disgrace to their status? Outrageous. The guard at the side was good at observing countenance. Seeing that the second lady was displeased, he growled, "We are kind enough to offer you a job, but you don't want to be slaves? Look at you villagers, all ugly and unsightly with those slavish looks. You were born to be slaves. The second lady is just trying to let them serve their purpose. Now you are only being ungrateful. What more do you still have to grumble about?" After he finished growling, the guard tapped the village chief's cheek with the sheath of a knife, a provocative look on his face. Right at that moment, Shinshin suddenly showed up and stood in front of the village chief. He pushed the sheath aside and raised his head to look at the guard. "Is it true that if we pay the additional 50% on the farm rent, we don't have to sign the deed? Pay the farm rent or sign the deed. You have to make a choice today." The guard put the knife on his shoulder, his tone disdainful. In his opinion, this group of lowly peasants could hardly afford to pay the original amount in the past, let alone paying the additional 50%. They were determined to force these peasants to become slaves today. The Zhangs and the Zhaos were engrossed in an intense battle, but in the end, both families would sustain great losses. The Wangs could seize this opportunity to rise. They might even obtain a great number of new farmyards. How do you make the most out of the new farmyards? By having these peasants labor away, of course. Once these peasants became slaves, the Wangs could exploit them to the extreme, as long as they did not die of exhaustion. As for the elderly, the weak, the ill, and the disabled, they should roll up their sleeves and get down to the fields as well. Instead of dying of sickness at home, they might as well die in the fields. That would maximize their worth. Upon hearing his words, Shinshin took a deep glance at the guard and began laughing unexpectedly. Loudly, he proclaimed, "Stone Village has 50 households. Theoretically, every household should pay 1,200 pennies, which adds up to 60,000 pennies in total. Now that you have increased the amount by 50%, it will be 90,000 pennies. I will pay the additional 30,000 pennies, which is equivalent to 30 taels of silver total." Upon finishing speaking, Shinshin fished out 30 taels of silver from his pocket and placed them on the stone tablet at the village entrance. As the popular saying went, the money one picks up does not belong to him. Thus, Shinshin did not feel sorry for himself at all. Apart from that, he had always been treated well throughout the many years he had lived in Stone Village. It was his obligation to pay that small amount of money for the villagers. Most importantly, he knew that even after making the payment, there was bound to be a fight today. With the battle array of the Wangs, they wouldn't possibly leave so easily just because they received the 30 taels of silver. He had to seize the chance to establish an absolute prestige in Stone Village. That way, when he went away for cultivation in the future, his parents would have a group of loyal people to take care of them. As they beheld the shiny silver, all the guards and the villagers dropped their jaws in awe. 30 taels of silver did not sound like a big amount, but it was considered an enormous sum to the villagers of Stone Village. They might not be able to amass it even if they sold off several households. However, Chun Chun displayed it all without even batting an eyelid. This made them wonder if they were dreaming. "Chun, from tomorrow onwards, you will be the village chief." The village chief, who was shivering with agitation, gave his village chief post to Chun Chun right away. Chun Chun was rather speechless. Did he look like someone that was longing to be the village chief? The face of the lead guard turned extremely awful as he watched the scene. Were the Wangs really concerned about 30 taels? Their true intention was to enslave all the villagers of Stone Village, wanting to exploit them generation after generation. By then, their value would be far more than anything 30 taels of silver could compare to. Having thought of that, the guard shot a glance at Wang Suqin. Wang Suqin did not speak a word, staring coldly at Chin Chun, who was standing in front of the stone tablet. She slowly unsheathed the long sword in her hand. "Are you that bad kind from the Chin family?" Wang Suqin points at Chin Chun with her sword, her voice freezing cold. Chin Chun ignored the sharp sword, calmly stating, "I was born with a clear background. How am I a bad kind? If the second lady of our house says you are a bad kind, then you are a bad kind. How dare you rebut?" The servants next to Wang Suqin immediately pulled out their swords, speaking with grudging faces. Other servants saw the scene and immediately pulled out their swords. The atmosphere immediately intensified. The villagers found this unacceptable. The village head stood up from the ground, standing in front of Qinshin, saying bitterly, "My second lady, since Stone Village can afford the land rent, for what reason is this happening?" Wang Suqin sneered at the words, abruptly saying, "This bad kind from the Qins must have stolen property from the Wang household. How would he procure 30 taels of silver otherwise? This is precisely the second reason for my visit here." The village head's face promptly froze at the words. He had seen Qinshin grow up and knew his character. How could he be capable of stealing anything? Second lady, Xiao Qin's character can be verified by every person in Stone Village. Stealing is not possible for him. I am willing to stake my life on this. Other villagers soon followed suit. Exactly. How can Xiao Qin steal? Watch your words. He isn't stealing even if I am. This kid was known for his fine character from a young age. The villagers from the Stone Village were a rustic people. Given how Chun Shun was willing to solve the property rent affair with his 30 taels of silver, how could they neglect him now that he was being targeted by Ms. Wang's sword? Wang Suqin's face dimmed as she saw this. She only wanted to get rid of the Qin family. Massacring the entire village left no slaves for the Wang's lands and was against their best interest. Thinking of this, she changed course. This is a personal affair between the Wang and Qin households. If anyone is willing to seize this lad for me, their property rent for this year shall be waived. She simply did not believe that a group of untouchables could withstand the lure of money. She was determined to make the lad learn how rough the world was. However, even after a moment's silence, nobody moved. This made Wang Suqin somewhat mad. 3 years. The village head shook his head, looking at Wang Suqin somewhat sympathetically. Second lady, this is not a matter of money. Xiaoqun has not conducted such an act of stealing. We will not betray our consciousness for money. How can we be good people otherwise? Wang Suqin's breath stopped at those words. The village head's words had punctured her heart like a needle. After a moment, she suddenly laughed up towards the sky. Haha, all of you villagers are truly untouchables. Consciousness? Why do you think you have the right to talk about that with me? Compared to Wang Suqin, Qinshin was very satisfied. After stepping forward 2 steps without saying a word, he looked at Wang Suqin. Slowly, he spoke. Back then, my father rescued your father, Wang Hu. He repaid him by claiming my father's military retributions, thereby building his grand household. The Wangs have never offered any compensation in the slightest since then. Now you are trying to repay mercy with hate? Let me ask you, were it not for my father, where would your household get its prosperity? Was it not for my father, where would you get your fine flowers, great horses, and hordes of servants? Now you are pointing your sword at me. I'm asking you, do you have the right? His statements silenced the village. Wang Suqin's face started changing colors. For some reason, looking at the teenager in front of her made her heart fill with worry. How could a teenager from the most lowly of backgrounds make such powerful and unreputable statements? Absolute garbage. A moment later, Wang Suqin shouted out in fury. But neither her flushed face nor her agitated breath showed signs of stopping. Afterwards, Wang Suqin's horse slowly pulled back a bit. With some distance between them, her face became even more ferocious. Pointing the sword at the village, she ordered, "Kill that lad. Any person on the way shall also be killed. Any consequences shall be accounted for by the Wang family." Hearing this, the servants had bloodthirsty looks on their faces. At this point, no hiding was necessary. Dada. Dozens of horses moved back to charge properly. The village head was very worried when he saw this. How could the villagers hold up against the charge of multiple horse riders? Village head, please go back, Qinshin said with a smile. But they are too far to kill me, Qinshin comforted him, his young face showing no signs of worry. Xiaoqun. A concerning call carried out through the crowd. It was Qinshin's mother, Qinro. Qinshan, meanwhile, stood next to Qinshin without saying a single word. As much as Qinshin had insisted that he had learned from a fairy as his father, Qinshan was still not willing to let him face that many unfriendly people. After all, He hadn't seen Qinchin's power with his own eyes. The Wang household is disregarding lives. How dare they forfeit such a fine boy like Xiao Chun? Shame on you. Xiao Chun, fear not. I, Uncle Qian, am not ready to see you die. A villager stood next to Qinchin in fury. Xiao Chun, you are covered by me. With someone in the lead, all the strong villagers stood next to Qinchin. With their scythes and hoes, they looked like a joke when compared to the high horses and sharp knives of their opponent. However, it most definitely moved Qinchin. For as poor as Stone Village was, its villagers were proudly united. Even in front of seemingly invincible enemies, they would stand beside him without a word.
Thank you so much for the follow, Kyle. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Qinchin scanned their faces as he spoke quietly. From afar, Wang Suqin's face distorted as she saw the scene. She groaned, "You bunch of untouchables. You really think I wouldn't dare to kill you? How laughable. Kill them all. We are massacring Stone Village today. Let me see who in Sichuan County can touch the Wangs." All the bodyguards licked their lips as they heard this. They were looking at the villagers as if they were sheep ready to slaughter. Then, the leading servant raised his fighting sword, making the pre-charge call. "Charge with me. Anyone in our way must die." With that call, the several dozen high horses accelerated together, creating a curtain of dust, dashing towards the villagers like a thunderstorm. Compared to that, the villagers were like duckweeds in the middle of a hurricane, as fragile as they may seem. Behind the villagers, many elderly, young, and female villagers had already broken into tears. Arya hid his head behind his mother's head. The several dozen horses were about to dash into the villagers as a massacre was initiated. The youth in the group suddenly took one step forward. His plain shirt moved without any wind present. This simple movement seemed to come with seemingly unparalleled reverence. Screech. The several dozen high horses were very frightened, screaming aloud together, as if they were not facing a group of villagers, but rather an abyss. The foremost horse lost its step, crashing into the ground with the servant. The others running behind it promptly followed suit. The seemingly invincible charge was dismantled in no time. Ultimately, no person or horse reached within a 3-meter radius of the youth. The ashes dissipated in a moment, a mess left behind in front of the stone steel. Several unlucky servants were crushed in a stampede by the horses and were now lying dead. Many others had suffered severe injuries in the fall and could only moan. Less than half of them could sit up on the ground in confusion, taking their time to understand the situation. Qinchin looked down at them, just like how they had done earlier. System, who's the strongest person within the 15-meter radius? Most definitely the inhibitor. The system gave a definite response. Qinchin smiled upon hearing this. The group of villagers looked at each other, their eyes filled with confusion. What was going on? Was there some invisible wall in front of the steel of the village? How could the Wang servants fall like this otherwise? Before anyone got a solid grip on the situation, Qinchin slowly walked to the front, plainly saying, "If you wish to negotiate, then so will we. If you wish to play the fist game, then so will I." The area surrounding him was quiet. Wang Suqin, who had not joined the charge, finally got her horse to rest. As she heard his words, her eyes finally showed some signs of worry. Did the lad cause all these incidents? But how could a boy from a tenant's family have such abilities? She didn't even think about immortality cultivation. Immortality cultivation was her ultimate dream. Deep down, she refused to recognize that a tenant's son could achieve her dream. "You untouchable, die now." The servant that had just led the charge suddenly jumped up, his machete swinging towards Qinchin. Qinchin doesn't even bother to look towards him. He simply kicked the servant's stomach. The kick was too fast to be fully viewed with the human eye. The momentum was astonishing. Pong. That servant flew into the air with a muffled sound. Quite literally, he flew. He stayed in midair, flying over 20 meters, landing, and finally rolling several meters before stopping. The consequence of such a severe hit can be imagined with ease. The servant died midair. Looking at the corpse in the distance, which looked like a broken bag, the scene only became quieter. Even those servants that were moaning previously didn't dare to make a sound. One moment later, the farming tools in the villagers' hands started falling to the ground. The surprise on their faces as they looked at the back of the youth in front of them was unparalleled. They had all seen Qinchin grow up. Having seen how harmless he was, it was reasonable for them to be surprised when he kicked a man like a ball. He is a fairy, one of the servants shouted suddenly, breaking the silence. His words, like an asteroid striking a calm ocean, created massive waves. F.A. Fairy. How can it be? He is a fairy. Other servants crawled behind nonstop as they whispered. In this world, fairies were the most revered. In countless places, tales of fairies circulated. Being able to manipulate mountains and seas and being invincible were characteristics of a fairy, constituting the average person's impression of a fairy. If the youth in front of them was a potential fairy, how dare they organize further attacks? Wang Suqin was equally frightened at this point. Without the status of cultivation, there was no justification for the youth's ability to stun a group of horses and kick a man into flying. But if this youth had actual cultivation status, the Wang family, Wang Suqin didn't dare to think any further, her eyes turning red immediately. Pointing her sword towards Chun Chun, she ordered, "He only started cultivation recently and is not of much status. By moving together, we may be able to kill him." However, no servants follow her orders. These servants were already out of their guts by this point, their legs shivering. All they wanted were 2 more legs to assist them in fleeing. How dare they gamble their lives in this circumstance? That's a bunch of garbage. Wang Suqin was very infuriated. She jumped down from the horse, chopping off the head of a fleeing servant. Her clothes were rapidly dyed red as blood splashed out. With a twisted face, she looked as ferocious as a demon, straight from the inferno. Any person attempting to run will have his household eliminated. But if anybody here kills this evil being, I shall marry that person and bear children for him. This lucky person will enjoy all the riches of the Wang family. Following her statements, many servants become hesitant. The second lady was not only a beauty from a household of riches, but also a fine martial artist. In the eyes of the servants, she had long since been a goddess. They had likely tortured her countless times in their dreams. With this promise coming, it was impossible that they weren't moved at all. "We are dying anyway." "Move." A less severely injured servant groaned as he dragged his machete towards Chinchin, his eyes insane. Other servants also picked up their machetes and prepared for another charge. At that point, Chinchin kicked once again. This time, a hand-sized rock flew out, destroying the lunatic servant's head. Recalling how Wang Suqin had attempted to flirt the hearts of the villagers of the stone village, Chinchin suddenly smiled an evil smile. Speaking to the frightened servants, he said, "Kill her for your life. Of course, if you can seize her alive, you are welcome to do with her as you please. I just want her dead. As for consequences, worry not, for the Wangs will be no more afterwards. Think carefully. Do you think you have better odds against me, a fairy, or her, a regular lady?" Chinchin's words circulated throughout the entire area. Unparalleled fear appears on Wang Suqin's face. She couldn't believe this all came from a teenager who looks about 16 years old. Other servants halted their steps, their heads staring at the ground, their thoughts unknown. Then, Chinchin added one sentence. "I need not lie as a fairy." Finally, servants started turning their heads. Soon, the 11 remaining servants all turned back, looking at Wang Suqin and her sword with cold eyes, their machetes reflecting the light. "What are you doing? You are the dogs of the Wangs." Wang Suqin exclaimed in fear. "Yeah, the Wangs never treated you like humans." This lady had no hesitation in chopping down that servant's head just now. "Why should you have any mercy on the Wangs?" Chun Shin calmly asked them in front of the stone stele. In terms of heart manipulation, he was exponentially better as a time traveler who had been a human for 2 lives and had experienced modern society, especially when compared to the underqualified Wang Suqin. As expected, upon hearing those words, the servants were free of any mental load and started roaring at Wang Suqin. "You cheap lady! Die! I will kill you today!" Arms clash. In no time, the servants siege Wang Suqin, and the sound of arms clashing pour into spectators' ears. The villagers, looking at the scene, can only conclude that they are currently living in a dream. Several minutes later, the sounds of arms clashing stopped. Wang Suqin used her sword as a walking stick, several wounds now on her body. Surrounding her, the 11 servants all lay dead on the spot, their appearances wretched. Impressive, Chinchin praised her, looking at the corpses. Looking at Chinchin, who had not been stained a single dust particle, Wang Suqin's eyes were as ferocious as they could possibly be. She said in a husky tone, "How vicious. You want to talk about rules with me, so I talk about rules with you. You want to play fists with me, so I play fist with you. How am I vicious?" Qinshin smiled as he talked. Wang Suqin had no words. By this point, she had only hatred and envy in her heart. How come this lad from such a lowly background could embark on the journey of cultivation, yet she couldn't? She hated heaven for its injustice. The next moment, she immediately turned to the horse, attempting to flee. But the moment she was on the horse, sounds of air pushing away could be heard. Before she could react, a sharp knife punctured her through her chest. She struggled to turn her head, seeing the lad in front of the steel with that same smile on his face, as if nothing had happened. Wang Suqin's fury reached its peaks at this point. Then, she dropped from the horse, her heart unwilling and her breath lost. Qinshin didn't speak anything at first. He quietly walked into the cluster of people, leading a stampede on any living servant. Soon, none of the Wang's people remained alive. All the villagers of Stone Village looked at the frightfully quiet scene. Qinshin sighed in his heart. He did not turn back to look at the villagers and his parents, only saying quietly, "This is a tough era, and sometimes killing is necessary to stop others from killing." Afterwards, he rode on Wang Suqin's white horse. Just before he made a visit to the Wang household, his mother's voice came from behind him. "Xiaoqian, be careful." Hearing this, Qinshin briefly stopped, then left on his horse without any further delays. The inhibitor has achieved achievement, killing, and has been awarded one opportunity for tracking within a 10-kilometer radius. Qinshin smiled upon receiving that information in his brain. While inferior to the original track within Sichuan County, this 10-kilometer tracking was still a pleasant surprise. Instead of rushing to use this opportunity, Qinshin continued to move towards the Wang family's house. System: anything of major worth within this 15-meter range? No. Throughout the ride, Qinshin utilized the system to his maximum advantage. After all, he finally got a transportation tool for use, and there was no reason to give up such a good searching opportunity. He had made some plans. He may as well be a sword fairy, riding swords for treasures across historic mountains and valleys. Wouldn't that be amazing? As he made those tentative plans inside his heart, the system gave him a different response in his brain. There is a tomb about to collapse, 14 meters underground to the left of you. It contains precious items. Hearing this, Qinshin immediately became alert. Tomb. Turns out, there are surprise discoveries. In theory, he, a fine teenager, should not steal from tombs. But then, this tomb was about to collapse. In that case, he shouldn't be blamed for his actions, right? Thinking this, he jumped off of his horse and went towards the location the system suggested. It was just a regular grassland next to the road. With fine grass on top, there were no signs of irregularities, never mind any signs of a tomb below. Qinshin walked above it for a bit, but there were no reactions. He then stomped on the ground. Suddenly, the ground collapsed. Thankfully, Qinshin reacted very fast at this point. By the time the ground collapsed, he had jumped out of range. As the dust settled, he walked closer for a look, making an interesting discovery. There was a coffin, as deteriorated as it could possibly be. Even the bones inside had rotten away, leaving only powder behind. In addition, there were some anti-theft traps and some sprinkling gears. It seemed like the traps had been quite delicate when they were still intact. But by this point, all that was left were some nearly rotten metal spikes pointing upwards towards the sky. This tomb may be older than Sichuan County itself, Qinshin said to himself, carefully poking the soil away. He soon found a delicate wooden box inside the rotten coffin. Using unknown materials, the box was somehow still in good shape and exuded a faint fragrance despite both the coffin and the bones having rotten away. There were precious items inside the wooden box, for sure. As a precaution against potential anti-theft mechanisms, Qinshin practiced the utmost caution, using a tree branch to flip the box open. He turned out to have thought too much. There were no mechanisms inside. All that was inside were 2 jade pamphlets and a small jade bottle. Inside the jade bottle, there were some elixir leftovers, clearly not for consumption. Qinshin shook his head, then took out the 2 jade pamphlets. The first read Emu mediumship knack. The second read pyrokinesis craft. Are these cultivation materials? Qinshin was stunned as he looked at the ashes inside the tomb. He didn't expect the deceased person to be a cultivator. But apparently, he wasn't on a particularly high tier. It was likely that he was on the same tier as Qinshin, simply on the top tier stage of Qi training. Otherwise, his bones wouldn't have been so rotten. As for the 2 secret books, they probably weren't top-notch techniques. Qinshin wasn't refusing it, however. Setting the Emu mediumship knack aside, he started reading the pyrokinesis craft with more detail. The so-called pyrokinesis was fundamentally a trick in the circulation of ethereality. Because of either Qinchin's high talents or the pyrokinesis craft's low difficulty, Qinchin could manipulate his ethereality and have his fingertip playing with fire after a quick read-through. Most importantly, he doesn't feel any pain on his finger. Interesting. Qinchin's eyes shone. He finally found a piece of interest beyond his reach in his last life in this world. Being in a rush to kill the Wongs, Qinchin didn't spend any more time on it. Packing up the jade pamphlet, he buried the tomb once again. After all, having obtained items from this individual, he should show some sign of appreciation by not leaving his body exposed in the open, even though this fellow practitioner's bones were nearly gone. As Qinchin buried the tomb and prepared to leave, sounds of horse running came from the end of the road. Soon, around 12 men entered his eyesight. "Stop running. Kill him. You are dying today." Looking at the scene before him, Qinchin's face turned grim. After finding out the person being chased, his face became grimmer. What's with this Mr. Zhang? He's being chased after and almost killed daily. Can we even get one peaceful day? After commenting dryly in his heart, Qinchin looks into the tomb, his heart somewhat frightened. Was it possible that the 2 jade pamphlets he had just received should have been found by Mr. Zhang? What was up with this Mr. Zhang? Was he an illegitimate child of heaven or something? As he wondered this in his heart, anxious calls from Mr. Zhang came from afar. "Please move out of the way, my young man. These people behind me won't even blink an eye at an accidental kill." Hearing this, Qinchin hurried off of the road with his horse. The approximately 12 horses soon approached Qinchin. The group chasing behind Mr. Zhang were in similar outfits to the one worn by the servants of the Wang household. They may very well have been servants of that household. As Mr. Zhang rode past Qinchin with his horse, a servant chasing behind him noticed the wooden box in Qinchin's hands. His eyes suddenly shone with greed, shouting, "This lad has a box made of agarwood in his hands." Screech. Learning of his words, every servant chasing behind Mr. Zhang halted their horse as they stared at Qinchin, who was standing next to the road. "Kid, what's in that box?" The head servant asked with malice. "Are you from the Zhao family?" Qinchin didn't reply, instead asking a question in return. The Zhao family was the largest family in Sichuan County. There were rumors that they had started off as horse bandits. Although they had rebranded themselves, they still occasionally do some robberies. There were 3 big families in Sichuan County. The Wang family did not dress in these kinds of clothes. With the Zhang family's son being hunted, the identity of these people was pretty easy to guess. "If you know we're from the Zhao family, leave it and get out." One servant shouted and took out a knife. They were in a rush to chase their target and had no time to waste. Da-da-da. He never expected that the young Lord Zhang would turn back at this moment. "If you want to kill me, hunt me alone. Why are you bothering this young man?" Lord Zhang yelled while holding his sword. Qinchin's eyes twitched when he heard the words. This Lord Zhang was really silly and naive. What? He wanted to be hunted and killed. In fact, Lord Zhang's mind was in turmoil. He had an extraordinary talent since he was a child. His memory was outstanding. On the day he was hunted by killers sent by the Zhao family, a young man with a face-covering face had suddenly jumped off of a cliff to distract the killers, allowing him to escape. He had branded the young man's voice deeply in his mind, often warning him. Just now, when he heard the young man speak, his voice sounded exactly the same as that of the masked man from that day. This made him subconsciously turn his head. After a closer look, his figure also matched. At that moment, he had already determined that this young man was a savior, but he didn't know how the young man had managed to survive after jumping off of the cliff. The savior had already saved his life without being thanked yet. How could he bear to endanger this savior once again, especially if he had surprisingly survived? His conscience wouldn't allow him to do so, so he turned back. Seeing Lord Zhang had returned to be caught, the head servant of the Zhao family chuckled so heartily, he almost ran out of breath. Haha, it is rumored that Lord Zhang has been extremely smart since he was a child, but I didn't expect him to be such a fool. The other servants also laughed. Instead of running away, Lord Zhang came back and asked why they didn't continue chasing him. How is this not stupid? He was a little bro, leave. I will block them for you. Lord Zhang ignored the ridiculing of the crowd and rode in front of Qinchin. Qinchin was completely speechless when he saw this. This guy was like the legendary Zhang Wuji, acting like a hero. No way. You wish. The head servant was in a good mood at the moment, and with a sudden wave of his hand, a few people came out behind him to completely trap Lord Zhang. while he himself rushed toward Chen. "Why do you think I want to run? How dare you rob me? I think you're looking for trouble." Chen cursed to himself and at the same time quietly activated his fire control technique, his fingers soon lighting up. Lord Zhang was both surprised and angry as he yelled, "Savior, be careful." As soon as he spoke, Chen suddenly pointed at the servant who was rushing over, shooting a finger-sized flame towards the man. In an instant, the servant was burned into a fireball and fell from the horse with a plop. After a few moments of struggling, he stopped moving. Then there was only a black mark in the shape of a person imprinted on the side of the road, indicating that this servant had once existed in this world. This power. Chen's pupil shrank slightly. He couldn't sense the temperature of the flame, so he deliberately wanted to experiment. He didn't expect the power to be so terrifying. A person had been burned to ashes in mere seconds. With this type of efficiency, he could have made a fortune running a crematorium in his past life. While he was shocked, the Zhao family's servants who saw this scene were even more shocked and horrified. They were so scared, they couldn't even hold their knives steady anymore. F.A. Fairy. He's an immortal. Hearing their screams, Chen glanced at them inadvertently, and all the horses, including Lord Zhang's, raised their heads and neighed, dumping all of the riders to the ground. Lord Zhang was very skilled. After he landed steadily, without a word, he began killing those frightened servants. It didn't take long for the entire group to die. After doing all of this, Lord Zhang looked back at Chen. His gaze was complicated. Just now, when he had seen from the corner of his eyes how Chen had shot out flames, he knew that the young man in front of him was not immortal. He didn't think the young man would save him again after saving him once before. The two life-saving graces made him feel as grateful as a surging river. So, without saying anything, he fell on one knee in front of Chen. "Yours truly, Zhangji. Thank you, big brother, for saving my life twice." Zhangji. Hearing this name, Chen felt quite speechless. There was another person called Zhang Wuji, and his name was Zhangji. Why did he call him big brother? He was obviously much older than him. He didn't want to say anything. If he wanted him to be an older brother, he couldn't insist on being younger. "Please rise. I just did it since it was convenient. It's no big deal." Chen meant what he said. This Zhangji could be an illegitimate son of the heavens. He ran into opportunities everywhere. Every time Chen took the opportunity from this guy, he would inevitably have to save him to pay for it. He was afraid that all of this was by heavenly arrangement. Zhangji's expression became serious when he heard the words, and solemnly said, "Although Big Brother is just casually helping Zhangji, you have remade me. This kindness will be remembered by Zhangji. If Big Brother orders me, Zhangji will go through fire for him, and not hesitate." Listening to those words, Chen felt a little embarrassed. He took advantage of other people's chances, but then they kneeled and thanked him. This was taking it too far. With this thought, he helped Zhangji stand up. Looking at the handsome man in front of him, who was only slightly less attractive than himself, Chen suddenly had a thought. He asked in his mind, "System, who is the one with the best luck in this 15-meter radius?" He is in front of the host, Zhangji, with great luck and purple chi coming from the east. He is blessed. He is the son of destiny, rare in thousands of years. Hearing the system's comment, Chen silently cursed. He soon had another thought after cursing. If he accepted Zhangji as a brother, paired with his own tracking system, wouldn't he be invincible? Even if he could only track a few dozen meters, he could have bigger chances. With this idea, Chen put on a mysterious smile. "Little brother, this is all meant to be. If it wasn't fate, how could I have saved you twice?" Zhangji shivered when hearing the title of little brother. After a few minutes, the two became as close as biological brothers. Of course, this was partly due to Chen's bamboozling. The experience of 2 lifetimes, coupled with his brainwashing skills, made Zhangji dazed. If it weren't for the limited environment, Zhang would have liked to kneel and become blood brothers immediately. "Brother Chen, there is something I shouldn't ask, but since we met so late, I really needed to ask," Zhangji asked after a while, growing serious. "Go ahead." Chen waved his hand elegantly. "Brother Chen, why did you want to commit suicide by jumping off of a cliff that day? Is there anything unspeakable? Although your younger brother is not talented, if Brother Chen has any difficulties, the younger brother is willing to go through fire to share Brother Chen's worries." Zhangji's expression was extremely heartfelt. Looking at his sincere and caring gaze, Chen patted him heavily on the shoulder and thought to himself, "Silly kid, I jumped off the cliff to take your opportunity. You don't need to share my troubles. Better to reflect on why you're always being hunted." Noting Chen Chen's solemn look and his silence, Zhang Ji was even more anxious. He almost wanted to kneel again. But then Chen Chen suddenly spoke. "Brother, have you heard of the story of the baby eagle?" "Baby eagle? No, I haven't." Zhang Ji looked confused. Chen Chen felt guilty bamboozling someone so stupid. So he turned his head and looked into the distance. It is said that if the baby eagles really want to learn to fly, the older eagles must toss them off the cliff. The young eagle can only develop its full potential when facing a life or death situation, learning how to navigate between the sky and earth. Zhang Ji, as someone who was into cultivation, had never heard this kind of self-help talk before. After hearing this myth, he was excited and emotional. "Brother Chen, are you saying you jumped off the cliff to bring out your biggest potential? Training for some kind of craft?" Chen Chen patted Lord Zhang's shoulder again with a wistful gaze. He looked like someone who had bested countless opponents over the years, his face filled with loneliness. "Dear brother, as long as you understand." Zhang Ji was so shocked by Chen Chen's answer. He couldn't think of anything to say. Now it all made sense. No wonder Brother Chen looked so young, but was already on a journey of cultivation. Brother Chen had incredible self-discipline. He jumped off of a 1,000-meter cliff without any hesitation. It was not a spirit he could have matched. At this thought, Zhang Ji admired him even more. He kneeled once again. "Brother Chen, you really are my role model. Please accept my salute." Chen Chen blushed and helped Zhang Ji up. He asked in bewilderment, "How did you offend the Zhao family? Why do they want to kill you?" Zhang Ji stood up. His face was full of anger. "Some time ago, an elder of the Tianyin clan passed through Sichuan County. He found out that I had the talent to cultivate immortality, so he gave me a token and asked me to go to Ji State on August 1st. On that day, the Tianyin clan would recruit disciples in Ji State, and I was supposed to enter the Tianyin clan with the token. Somehow, this news got leaked. The Zhao family and my own family have always been enemies. How could they allow me to go cultivate immortality? So they sent people to assassinate me. My father was so furious when he learned this that he went to war with the Zhao family. However, we are weaker than them. After the first battle, I was a little weak, so I went to a nearby village to gather help for my family. For some reason, I ran into assassins as soon as I left Sichuan County." Chen Chen sighed after hearing this account. Why did he keep saying for some reason? It was obvious that the Zhang family had traitors among them. However, he didn't pay attention to that. He was more interested in the Tianyun clan. It was apparent that this was a clan for immortality cultivation. That's what he wanted to know the most about, clans for cultivation. After pondering on it a bit, he gently asked, "Is this Tianyun clan powerful?" Hearing Chen Chen's question, Zhang Ji's eyes widened in surprise, blurting out, "Of course they're powerful. The Tianyun clan is the strongest immortal clan in Ji State. There are more than a dozen affiliated sects under its command. Right, Brother Chen? Which clan are you with? How did you have time to come to our tiny Sichuan County?" Chen Chen calmly replied, "I was learning at home." "What? I learned on my own." "What?" Zhang Ji exclaimed. He had never heard of learning cultivation by yourself. If this was true, Brother Chen must be immensely talented. If the Tianyin clan elder met Brother Chen instead of him, he would not leave any tokens but recruit him right away instead. Brother Chen is a man of true temperament. He wouldn't lie to me. Thinking this, Zhang Ji looked at Chen Chen with even more admiration than before. After a while, he suddenly became overjoyed and suggested, "Brother Chen, why don't you go to the Tianyun clan with me? With your talent, you can definitely make something of yourself and their clan." "That's a great idea," Chen Chen said with a smile. Zhang Ji's words were exactly what he wanted to hear, so he readily agreed. "Great." Zhang Ji slapped his thigh, but then he looked despondent. "Brother Chen is extremely talented, but my own talent is dull. I'm afraid it will be hard for me to reach your level in the future." Chen Chen couldn't say anything. Why was he beating himself up all of a sudden? After sighing, he comforted Zhang, "Don't worry. The most important thing for cultivation is luck. Your dumb luck is good, and you are destined to have a bright future." "Huh? Luck?" Zhang Ji thought he had misheard. Chen Chen knew that he had misspoke and quickly changed his words. "The most important thing in cultivating immortality is perseverance. In fact, my own talent is also average. I reached my current cultivation level through hard work." Hearing this, Zhang Ji was energized. Thinking of Chen Chen jumping off the cliff, he was immediately inspired and regained his confidence. "Brother Chen is absolutely right, but I have to call in reinforcements now, otherwise my family will suffer. In a few days, I will invite Brother Chen, and we can drink and talk all night long." Zhang Ji finally remembered his mission. His expression changed as he got up on his horse. Qinshan stopped him and said, "It's not a big deal. I have to go to the county to do something anyway, so I will help you take care of the Zhao family along the way." How much combat power could the villagers have? Letting them participate in the battle will only be sacrificing them. Zhang Ji was silent for a moment. His gaze showed how touched he was. This brother Qin had only met him twice, yet he was willing to help in this way. This kind of loyalty. Thinking of this, Zhang Ji's eyes became red, and these words appeared in his mind. A true friend is hard to find. Brother Qin, I have a younger sister. Zhang Ji was so moved he could hardly speak. His words all jumbled up. Let's go to the county. It's not a big deal. Qinshan smiled as he got on the horse. He did not worry about Zhang Ji's safety when he offered to help him. This guy was very lucky, so he would probably be fine. He was more afraid that something would happen to this guy's parents. Then, like Zhang Wuji, if his parents were sacrificed, Zhang would go hide somewhere to practice magic. Then who would bring him to G-State? He didn't exactly have a GPS. As for the Zhao family, they were bad people and could be destroyed. He could raid the family for riches so that when he left, he could provide his parents with a comfortable life, one that was free of farm work. The villagers in Stone Village should also stop farming and practice martial arts. Laohei the pig could also be taken care of by a dedicated person, getting fatter. Qinshan started laughing as he thought of his grandiose plans. The two of them then rushed, reaching Sichuan County in a bit. There still weren't many people on the streets, only a few shops with half-closed doors. What did Brother Qin come to the county for? Did you want to buy something? Zhang Ji asked him curiously. You will know when you see it, Qinshan answered with a smile. Soon, he arrived in front of a mansion on the east side. Two stone lions stood at the front of the mansion and a servant was guarding the door. This was the homestead of the Wang family. As one of the three major families in Sichuan County, the Wangs had 50 or 60 people in their household. Qinshan's expression suddenly became serious while looking at the figures going back and forth beyond the door. Zhang Ji, let me ask you, how will you deal with the Zhao family? I have to kill the entire family, of course, otherwise I can't go to the Tianyun clan safely, Zhang Ji replied easily. He may seem a little stupid to Qinshan, but at least he understood some things. Chopping the grass without removing the roots meant that the spring breeze would help them to regrow. Kindness to the enemy was cruelty to oneself. Qinshan smiled upon hearing his words. Well said. Chopping grass means taking care of the roots as well. As soon as he finished talking, the servant at the door seemed to recognize Qinshan's white horse. The man's pupil shrank slightly and he immediately rushed inside. In a moment, nearly 20 people rushed out of the door, all of them holding steel knives and looking fierce. After these 20 people filed through the door of the Wang house, Wang Hu and another older man finally walked out. Seeing the older man, Zhang Ji's face changed as he shouted out, the Zhao family steward. At a time like this, the Zhao family steward being at the Wang house meant they were working on an alliance. The target of their alliance was obviously the Zhang family. At this thought, a cold sweat broke out on Zhang Ji's forehead. If these two big families joined forces against the Zhangs, his family would not be able to fight them. It was good that he had ran into Brother Qin today, or his family would have suffered a terrible fate. But what was Brother Qin doing at the Wangs? With his brain circuitry, it was impossible to connect Qinshan's statement of doing something to the task of destroying the Wang family, one of the three major families. Who are you? Why do you have my daughter's horse? Wang Hu yelled, pointing at Qinshan. Qinshan smiled grimly. How ridiculous was it that Wang Hu didn't even know him? He had never taken his family seriously at all. In Wang Hu's eyes, Qinshan's family was most likely a nest of ants, meant to be killed at his will. The steward of the Zhao family looked at Zhang Ji, stating with a cold smile, I don't know who the kid is, but this is the son of the Zhang family. Master Wang, as long as you kill him today, the Zhao family will marry our daughter to your son. We'll give you ownership of 10 shops in town as part of the dowry. What do you think? Wang, who didn't want to listen to Qinshan at this time, only seeing the white horse Qin was riding. That was his daughter Wang Suqin's horse. Before he could ask more, Qinshan said calmly, It's normal for you not to recognize me. My name is Qinshan. Qinshan is my dad. Do you understand now? When he said this, Wang Hu's face suddenly became gloomy. Earlier in the morning, Wang Suqin had said that she would take some people to Stone Village, bringing back the heads of the Qin family with her. Then why was the Qin kid riding his daughter's horse to his door? This really puzzled him. You untouchable, did my daughter ask you to come here and beg for mercy? Do you deserve to ride this horse? Come down this instant. Wang Hu rolled his eyes, thinking he had understood the situation. As for everyone in the Wang family being wiped out, it wasn't something he had even considered. Who would have expected an immortal to come out of a shabby tenant village? Insolent! Wang Hu, how dare you insult my elder brother? I will fight you to the death. Qinshan didn't give any reaction, but Zhang Ji became angry. He drew his sword and pointed it at Wang Hu, shouting angrily. Wang Hu and Steward Zhao looked at each other and then at Zhang Ji as if he was a mentally disabled child. They thought this kid had become stupid somehow. He was 20 years old and the son of a prominent family. Yet he called a young man dressed in sackcloth, who seemed to be less than 18 years old, his elder brother? There was surely something wrong with him. Looking at Zhang Ji, who was more loyal than his Lao He, Qinshan was a little speechless. He pointed, and a ray of flame flew out of his finger, turning the guard at the front into ashes. Ever since he had learned how to control fire, Qinshan had evolved from close combat to a more distant attack. And compared to kicking, this fire control technique was much more advanced and elegant, instantly distinguishing him from mortals, which had the added benefit of shocking people. Seeing this, the scene suddenly became so quiet, a needle dropping able to be heard. Whether it was a servant, Wang Hu, or Steward Zhao, everyone's eyes grew as big as copper bells. No one could believe what was happening. Was the young man riding a white horse in front of them an immortal? If you have killed for the Wang family, and yourself. If you haven't killed for them, get out of here now, and I will spare your life. As for the Wangs, they all have to die today. Qinshan drew back his hand. His tone was light and carefree. The group of servants, who were normally as fierce as wolves, turned into sheep instantly. Their knives were tossed out in fright, and they all knelt on the ground, begging Qinshan for mercy. In this world, the deterrent power of immortals against mortals was indeed terrifying. Everyone who can get out, get out. I don't want to do more killing karma today, Qinshan ordered while seated on the horse, secretly pleased. He couldn't help but think of the protagonists in those martial arts dramas from his previous life. As soon as they announced their names, something like South Murong or North Xiaofeng, people became terrified. It's a pity that I started so late. I haven't gotten a name yet. While he pondered over this, some of the servants had already thrown away their weapons and were about to run. System. Who among these people deserves to die? Qinshan asked in his mind while everyone was preparing to run. 5 meters on the left, 6 meters on the right, and 8 meters on the right. The system reported 5 people in a row. These 5 people, without exception, did not intend to end themselves. Qinshan sneered, shooting a ray of flame at one of the faster servants, instantly burning him to ashes. I hope you know what bad things you have done. If you commit suicide, at least you can leave the body whole. Think about it. Hearing Qinshan's words, the few who had killed people fell to the ground with weak legs. After a while, they were so frightened, they lost control of this world believed that being buried upon death was best, and those who died without a whole body would not reincarnate. So, burning into ashes in their eyes was many times more terrifying than death itself. Earlier, when Qinshan kicked someone to death in Stone Village, some Wang servants had still dared to fight him to the death, but now, by using the fire control technique, he had scared these servants out of their minds. Immortal. I'm wrong. I will be a good person in my next life. One servant cried and shouted, then slit his own throat. The remaining few were all scared, lying on the ground like dead dogs, unable to commit suicide. They had no way out. The immortal in front of them was too terrifying, and they couldn't even hide if they had killed before. To them, he was like God, unable to be resisted. As for the servants who had sinned less, they had all run off without a trace. Wang Hu and Steward Zhao had finally realized what was happening. Both of them were quite scared. Steward Zhao stopped mentioning the idea of the marriage. He wiped cold sweat off of his forehead and said, "Immortal, I was just passing by. I have nothing to do with this Wang family. Goodbye." He had already cursed 18 generations of the Wang family over and over in his mind. He had also figured out why Zhang Ji wanted to recognize this young man as an elder brother. The man was an immortal. Never mind Zhang Ji calling him elder brother, he could have made Steward Zhao, a man in his 50s, call him grandfather. HM? Qinshan glanced at him. That single look forced Steward Zhao to kneel on the ground. Immortal, I really have nothing to do with the Wang family. Keep kneeling. Yes. Steward Zhao responded. The cold sweat on his face was falling like rain, but he didn't dare to move an inch. As for Wang Hu, he was also panting heavily at this moment. He had realized by now what had happened to the Wang family crew who had gone over to Stone Village. Who would have known that a sudden evil thought would have ruined his whole family? Suchi, you have ruined me. Wang Hu cursed in his heart, then picked up a knife on the ground and swiped it at his neck. Chen Chen's eyes twitched at this scene. At this moment, he had also fully realized the terrifying power of immortals in this world. He was afraid that some immortals had also done some bad things. Why would they scare a group of mortals into such a state otherwise? Brother Chen, this. The admiration in Zhang Ji's eyes went beyond words, but his vocabulary was really lacking, and he couldn't express himself very smoothly. Ji Chao Wu Lu, Chen Chen said with a smile. Zhang Ji did not understand, but it did not affect his continued admiration. Then he seemed to think of something and volunteered, Brother Chen, let me take care of the rest. I heard that after starting the path of immortality, it is not appropriate to slaughter many mortals. Otherwise, you will be hit with jealousy when you rise to heaven. If you were an ordinary cultivator, it would be fine, but in your case, Brother Chen, you will definitely rise. After saying this, Zhang Ji carried his sword and rushed into the Wang compound. Chen Chen marveled at his retreating shape. What a competent little brother he was. He was not only filled with confidence in his elder brother, he was also willing to volunteer and share his worries. Not only was he concerned for his elder brother, there was no need to worry about him dropping dead one day either. Even more importantly, he brought opportunities for his elder brother. This kind of little brother was comparable to a great opportunity. It was incredible to meet and impossible to find. He had to keep on bamboozling him and make him even more loyal. Zhang Ji dashed into the Wang's compound, coming out with a coat of blood on his body soon after. Brother Chen, I have done your tasks. Then let's go to your home, Chen Chen replied. But there are quite some valuables in the Wang's compound. If Zhang Ji said with some embarrassment, they are just worldly possessions. Leave them be for now. It's not preferable that we leave for your home late due to them. Some unanticipated incidents might occur, Chen Chen explained warmly, exactly like an older brother. Zhao Ji was even more moved by his words. Then he looked at Steward Zhao. Brother Chen, Steward Zhao has perpetrated multiple perilous affairs and has been the leading think tank for the horse theft quarter. Shall we get rid of him? Chen Chen shook his head, nudging his horse towards Steward Zhao, quietly asking him, Old Zhao, let me ask you, who in the Zhang family is your internal infiltrator? Upon hearing this, Steward Zhao's body began to shake. He knew that this fairy was interfering in the affairs between the Zhangs and the Zhaos. The Zhao family was doomed. Compared to the blood-covered Zhang Ji, this fairy was far more terrifying, with a smile on his face and calling him Old Zhao. Internal infiltrator. How? Are there traitors within my family? Zhang Ji asked in disbelief. Steward Zhao looked at him in disdain, then answered with a shiver. It's Zhang Ji's cousin, Wu Wei. Oh, how much did you promise him? Chen Chen continued. After eliminating the Zhangs, he will have Ms. Zhang, plus half of the Zhang family's properties. Steward Zhang didn't dare hide the truth. After all, with a background as a horse thief, he wasn't the most loyal of men. No way. How? You must be kidding me. My cousin has been living a life of security, and it's my father who adopted him. How can he do that? Zhang Ji's entire body shook as if it was hit by a thunder. He wasn't in the best shape at the moment. Chen Chen sighed as he looked at Zhang Ji. This kid was rather young and has not been adequately educated by society yet. Too young, too simple, sometimes naive, he thought. We can go to your home to see if Steward Zhao is telling the truth, Chen Chen said. How? We will talk on our way. Also, bring Steward Zhao on the way. Soon, the two arrived at the Zhang compound. At this point, the guards at the gate were on the highest alert, as servants patrolled with full caution. Young master is back. Despite the bloody coat, the servants recognized Zhang Ji and promptly opened the door. Upon leaving the horse, Zhang Ji instructed the servants while pointing towards Steward Zhao. Watch over this person well. Yes. Without speaking any words, the servants pushed Steward Zhao to the side. Afterwards, Zhang Ji walked to Chen Chen's side, showing a gesture of please. Brother Chen, please go first. Chen Chen smiled, and instead wiped the blood on Zhang Ji's face in such a way that his expressions were entirely unrecognizable. Your acting skills are rather inadequate, so it would be best if your face remains unrecognizable. When we come in, do as I have taught you. This way, we'll be able to see if your cousin's the traitor. Yes, Zhang Ji replied. Even at this point, he was still not fully willing to accept the fact that his own cousin had betrayed their family. The two entered the main building of the Zhang complex one by one. Before Chen could get a good look at the interior, a person dashed out and immediately hugged Zhang Ji without saying a word. "Cousin, are you okay? Why is your body covered in blood?" Chen looks at this person. He was a young man about Chen's age. His face was full of worry, seemingly somewhat grandiose. Clearly, this was Wu Wei, Zhang Ji's cousin. "System, any malicious people towards the Zhangs nearby? 2 meters in front of you." Upon hearing the system's response, Chen was satisfied. With this good start, he could test things out with much better certainty now. In a few moments, several more people ran out from the back house. The leading figure was a strong, middle-aged man with a stocky build. His face, full of roughness, showed some resemblance with Zhang Ji. This was clearly Zhang Ji's father, Zhang De. Zhang De was a military man, earning for his family with military credits. However, he was a rather blunt person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such a silly son, nor would he disregard all calculations and wage wars on the much more powerful Zhao's family just for an attack on his son, throwing his entire family into a crisis. Chen silently observed every member of the Zhang family. Zhang Ji's mother looked like a regular woman, with nothing particularly noteworthy about her. On the other hand, Zhang Ji's sister seemed to have some form of a genetic mutation that made her look rather fabulous indeed. At the age of 28, she was like a lily straight out of water, plainly gorgeous. And with her expression of concern as she looked at her brother, she only appeared more adorable. This explained Wu Wei's intentions. Even Chen was somewhat moved. Chen thought these things to himself, unable to help but smile. "This young brother is..." Zhang De was the first to notice Chen. He asked this question to Zhang Ji. Zhang Ji immediately escaped Wu Wei's hands and formally introduced Chen. "This is my newly known brother, Chen. He saved my life. His martial arts skills are no worse than mine. Now, he is even willing to help our family." His words were half true, half false. All of them were taught to him by Chen. Zhang De did not look down on him due to Chen's simple clothes. Rather, he cupped his fists, declaring, "Young brother, you are a benefactor of the Zhang family for saving my son. My family will be doing all that we can to help you, even if that means dashing through fire." Chen frowned. Since they were father and son, their words were surprisingly similar too. "It's part of my responsibility to help out when there is a need. Lord Zhang, you don't need to be so polite." "I am not being polite. I am very serious. This is not the place for conversation, so please follow me inside," Zhang De said sternly. Pointing towards the guest hall, Chen nodded and walked straight in the direction he pointed towards. When passing Wu Wei, he can feel a clear sense of hostility. Inside the guest room, Chen took the guest's seat as a maid came and served him a cup of tea. Chen nodded and sipped from the teacup, the motions elegant and fun. Everybody's eyes showed signs of surprise as they saw this. Chen looked up, somewhat confused. What was the matter with him? However, he understood the reason the very next second. Zhang De grabbed his tea and finished it all in one shot, showing very little etiquette. The several female dependents, feeling somewhat awkward, attempted to sip their tea like Chen, but couldn't quite mimic his fine grip, looking weird at first glance. The Zhang family is a family of military individuals. They probably aren't that educated, and likely don't know tea drinking shenanigans either, Chen thought to himself. Compared to him, with his modern society experience, the Zhang's so-called large household felt somewhat coarse. He was doing what he normally did. Were he to follow those fairy pretenders he had seen in his last life, at least in terms of their tea-drinking manner, he may very well frighten these people. "Young brother, you have a unique charisma. May I ask where you come?" But before she could even finish, Zhang Ji, sitting to the side, was finally done waiting. At this point, he only wished to confirm if his cousin was the traitor within the Zhang family. Therefore, he loudly yelled, "Father, Mother, Brother Chun is a person of great righteousness, and I find myself a good match with him in conversations. How about we marry him to Xiaoya?" PFFFF. Upon hearing his words, every single person who had been pretending to sip their tea couldn't help but shoot out all of it out of their mouths. Thankfully, I covered up his face. His tone sounded as if marrying his sister was a perilous order of affair. Chen felt rather helpless within, but had to put on a surprised look on his face. Absolutely not. Before Chen could refuse, a loud refusal spread across the guest hall. Everybody looked towards the source of the sound, surprised by what they saw. For the speaker was Zhang Ji's cousin, Wu Wei. Chen frowned but didn't speak, sneering from within. This Wu Wei was rather inexperienced, showing off his master plan at the slightest trigger, speaking even before him. Wu Wei realized that his words weren't appropriate, adjusting them to say, "I mean, marriage is an important order of affair and should be done with more consultation. You shouldn't be making decisions at the drop of a hat." While he concealed himself well, Qinshin can see a strain of hatred deep within his eyes. "Xiaya, what do you think?" While Zhang De thought this order of affair sounded somewhat fishy, he didn't make his opinions known just yet, instead looking at his shy daughter. Zhang Xiaoyu kept her head down, taking a small glimpse at Qinshin without sign. She remained silent for a moment, finally speaking at the volume of a mosquito, at the sole discretion of father and mother. Being a girl in this world, she'd long been indoctrinated with the idea that the critical affair of marriage should be decided by the instructions of parents and recommendations from a middleman. Given the fact that Qinshin, while in somewhat plain clothes, was of a unique charisma that differentiated him from her father and brothers, who were rather crude men specialized in fighting, if a marriage actually happened, she would be fine with it. What? Looking at Zhang Xiao's shy face, Qinshin was very surprised, and therefore can't help but ask the system a question. "System, who's the most charismatic male within a 15-meter radius?" "The inhibitor." Qinshin unknowingly smoothed his hair as he heard the answer. Well, even disregarding clothes and power, his charisma could stand out like a firefly in the dark in the Zhang family. It was normal that an average girl wouldn't be able to withstand his lure. What about the least charismatic person within a 15-meter radius? Qinshin looked at the three males from the Zhang family, asking with a certain degree of satire. "The man behind the wall, 3 meters behind you." Qinshin was briefly stunned by the response. As good as his sense was, he simply did not expect someone to be behind the wall. This may be too much of a coincidence. "System, how many people are there within a 15-meter radius?" 15, located in. When the system finished, Qinshin's face froze, his humorous thoughts out of the window. Inside the guest hall, there were 5 people from the Zhang family, plus a mid, which added to a total of 7, including himself. The other 8 people were lurking near the guest hall, not even he could see any signs of them. Even if he were to be told that this wasn't an ambush, he wouldn't believe it. Who would protect one's family in this manner? He continued to ask the system how many people from the Zhangs there were nearby. The system excluded the 8 and Wu Wei from its response. Qinshin sighed internally when he heard the response. Apparently the 8 were all arranged by Wu Wei. The things happening today didn't have to be as complicated as they appeared to be. He quietly mobilized his ethereality to inspect the tea he had just drank. Unsurprisingly, Qinshin sensed drugs within the cup. However, this was of no use to him with his ethereal entity. He could purify them away with ease with ethereality. Were it not for my presence, I think the Zhangs may very well be in peril. He wasn't too worried about Zhang Ji. That person had the finest luck possible. In other words, he was so lucky, he couldn't die even if he wanted to. "Xiaya, consider well. Look at him. He looks anything but rich. Your marriage may mean a lifetime of suffering." Wu Wei stood up and pointed at Qinshin, his words entirely devoid of reservation. By this point, his face was as grim as it could possibly be, his heart burning with envy. He'd been the person who served his cousin for ages, yet he got defeated by this poor lad that came from nowhere, just due to his handsomeness and charisma. Zhang Ji was infuriated by these statements. He stood up and spoke with fury. "Cousin, Brother Chun is just not bothered by money. Otherwise, he would have been the richest person here by this point." Zhang Ji's statements were sincere. After eliminating the Wangs, Qinshin didn't even bother confiscating their wealth, instead rushing off to help him. He knew he couldn't match such high morals. Upon hearing Wu Wei's comments on Qinshin, his fury rose in no time. Hearing this, Wu Wei sat down, his young face somewhat distorted. "Top riches? Huh. Cousin, I'm not blaming you, but you are just too easily fooled. If he were the richest person here with ease, why would he wear these kinds of clothes? Let me tell you a simple truth. No sane person in the world tortunes oneself. If one can wear clothes of fine silk, one wouldn't wear clothes. If one can eat fine dishes, one wouldn't eat fodder." Qinshin gave a mental thumbs up at his words while sitting on the side. For as bad of a person as Wu Wei is, he did reach the heart of the issue. Why would he wear this if he had the money? Is it that silk is uncomfortable? No. Beyond expectations, Zhang Ji is only more infuriated by the words. He points at Qinshin, the admiration in his eyes unparalleled. "Brother Chun, he is different? Do you know how hard he works?" This statement is loud and powerful, bringing a flush even to Chun Chen's face. Before he even noticed, Zhang Ji had become his fan. Seen the 1,000-meter-tall Black Wind Cliff? Well, you won't know. Zhang Ji attempted to speak again, but sat back down instead. He intended to convey the story of Chun Chen's cultivation by jumping off of the cliff, then give the story of a young eagle. But after a moment of thought, he figured that his words were too inadequate in demonstrating Chun Chen's high character and moral, so he swallowed the words. Cousin, your statements are a bit too much. I, Zhang Xiaoya, am not the type of person to care about nothing but money. Zhang Xiaoya, who had been quiet for a long time, suddenly spoke up. For as low her voice was, the displeasure in it was public. After listening to the words, Wu Wei suddenly laughed, the sound getting louder as the seconds passed. Haha, so you mean I, Wu Wei, am a villain? Mr. and Mrs. Zhang both frowned upon hearing these insane words coming from Wu Wei's mouth. Zhang turned to the maid and informed her, Xiao Lan, bring young Master Wei to his room for some rest. The maid immediately responds to the call, but before she could act, Wu Wei knocked on the table and took a tea glass in front of him. Uncle, I love Xiaoyu. Let me ask you, are you willing to betroth Xiaoyu to me? Every single person in the room's face changed upon hearing those words. Zhang De groaned, you rebellious son, get out of the room now. Not even Zhang De was expecting Wu Wei to threaten the Zhangs. Mrs. Zhang sitting aside, sighed and said, Xiao Wei, we all know your thoughts, but Xiaoyu has long told us that she is not in love with you. Wu Wei's face paled for a sudden, then turned ferocious in just a moment. Not in love with me? Huh, I know you Zhangs could never be bothered with me. For in your eyes, I am just a dog in the Zhang family's care. You rebellious son, have I ever treated you differently than Sun Ji in all these years? I have expected you to take over the family possessions after Sun Ji embarks on the cultivation journey. It seems like I should send you to the military for some time of experience instead. Zhang De yelled. He tried to stand up, but for some reason his body had softened, forcing him to sit back down. Wu Wei sneered at his words, his hands firmly gripping the glass. You are just being fake. Let me show you the consequences of not taking me seriously. Also, you cheap girl. Wait until you see what Elle will do with you. Afterwards, Wu Wei powerfully tosses the glass in front of Zhang Xiaoyu. Crunch. Following the crisp sound, there was suddenly a commotion surrounding the guest hall. A moment later, 8 heavily built men dressed in guards' uniforms dashed into the parlor, steel knives in their hands. Apart from Chin Chin, all the people of the Zhang family had deep frowns on their faces. Even if they really were stupid, they would have realized that things were out of line by now. Zhang Ji especially, who had been mentally prepared the earliest, was certain that Wu Wei was the traitor at this point. Cousin, the Zhangs have always treated you well. I never thought you would bring yourself to commit such ungrateful, ungracious deeds. Zhang Ji was so furious, he was shaking all over. The 8 of them were servants that Wu Wei had previously gone out to recruit. From the look of things now, the majority of them must belong to the Zhao family. What do you mean by ungrateful and ungracious? This is the infallible nature of human beings, to secure their own benefits. Wu Wei sat down with a serene, composed look on his face, appearing as if he had this victory within his grasp. Zhang Ji was utterly infuriated by his words, getting the urge to dash up to Wu Wei and grab him. However, right at that moment, a sense of lethargy surged through him. He staggered, and then tumbled onto the ground. Upon seeing the scene, Wu Wei and the 8 burly men burst into laughter. Haha, cousin, the tea that you just drank has had a paralyzing powder mixed into it. In a few hours' time, you won't be able to use any of your strength. The burly men followed along and flattered him for what he had done. Young Lord Wei has contributed massively this time. I just notified the people outside, and they have contacted Lord Zhao right away. I suppose it won't be long before Lord Zhao will come attacking with his forces. At that moment, Zhang De also realized that he was unable to use any of his strength, and he couldn't help but feel a deep sorrow. He muttered, It never occurred to me that I have been raising a traitor, who victimized the whole family. Shaya, Jier, it's Dad's fault. Right as he finished speaking, a commotion ensued outside the parlor. Obviously, people from the Zhang family had realized that something unusual was going on in here. Moments later, a few dozens of guards surrounded the parlor. Wu Wei put a ferocious look on his face when he saw the scene, growling, I'm going to kill everyone in House Zhang if any one of you dare to move. The guards exchanged glances upon hearing his words. No one dared budge. Nonetheless, Zhang De seemed to have nothing left to worry about. He snarled, All of you, come inside and slaughter this traitor for me. Otherwise, if the Zhaos come, we'll all be dead. Old man, if you dare to touch me, believe me, I will off Xiaoya's clothes right in front of everyone, and you won't get to rest in peace even in death. Wu Wei walked right up to Zhang Xiaoya, the look on his face hysterical by now. Zhang Xiaoya couldn't help but begin sobbing when she heard his words. Zhang De was so exasperated that green veins were bulging and throbbing on his forehead. He was at a loss for words. What a brutal man. At that moment, a tranquil voice reverberated throughout the parlor. The people traced the source of the sound to Chen Chen, who was enjoying his tea with a calm, unruffled look on his face. Upon seeing this, Zhang Ji couldn't help but remind him, Brother Chen, the tea has been drugged. Chen Chen did not seem to be bothered at all. He took a light sip of the tea. His moves were as elegant as usual, and his aura was extraordinary. Wu Wei laughed through his anger as he watched the scene. Brainless thing, how could you still be acting cool at this point of time? Chen Chen was in no hurry to answer him. After taking another sip of tea, he asked him, Wu Wei, do you really think that the Zhaos will fulfill their promise after exterminating the Zhongs? Do you really think that thieves are capable of keeping their word? Wu Wei's face fell theatrically upon hearing his words. In an enraged voice, he refuted him. Although Lord Zhao comes from a rather uncivilized background, he's still a hero who lives up to his promises. He swore a solemn oath in front of me. He's right, our chief always does as he says. Those big guys added hastily, fearing that Wu Wei might change his mind. However, the panic in their eyes did not escape Shen Chen's notice. Thieves were thieves. What hero were they babbling on about? These guys really were great at sugarcoating. Perhaps he was worried now, as a cold sweat was trickling down Wu Wei's face without him realizing. Eventually, all of his fears transformed into fury towards Chen Chen. He looked at Chen Chen, his eyes lit with a murderous blaze. This brat is full of misleading nonsense. Kill him for me. Right as he finished, an enormous, ugly-looking guy with an upturned nose strode toward Chen Chen. Zhang De spoke up when he saw what was happening. Wu Wei, this little brother has nothing to do with the Zhangs. Why must you vent your anger on him? Let him go, and I will have the guards outside retreat. What do you think? Upon hearing this, Chen Chen subliminally shot Zhang De a glance. Despite being rather straightforward and stubborn, Zhang Ji's father was a good man. He could be considered a real man of honor. When he went for cultivation in the days to come, he could put his mind at ease, leaving his parents under the care of a man like him. In fact, he had laid down his plans even before coming here. If he managed to save the Zhangs this time, they would certainly perceive his goodwill. As one of the 3 most reputable families of Sichuan County, he would be able to resolve the Wang's influence sooner with the help of the Zhangs. Before his departure, he could even reach a bargain with the Zhang family. In the future, he would look after the brat Zhang Ji, and in Sichuan County, the Zhangs would take care of his parents. It was all very fair and reasonable. The look on Wu Wei's face kept changing. Honestly speaking, he was very afraid of the guards outside. Even if Lord Zhao arrived with his forces, these guards could take him, the traitor, along with them too if they went all out in the fight. However, if these guards were removed from the picture, he would become utterly fearless and invincible. Having thought of that, he gave that unbelievably ugly guy a look, gesturing for him to stop. Uncle, have the guards retreat first. I only want to kill the Zhangs. I haven't lied to you yet, at least not at this point, Wu Wei said. Zhang De gritted his teeth upon hearing his words. It wasn't because he believed Wu Wei, but because after he calmed down, he realized that the best strategy was to have the guards retreat. Otherwise, once the Zhaos arrived later on, these guards would not be able to escape their deaths, as no one would be around to lead them. Wu Wei, if you lied to me, I will not forgive you even if I turn into a ghost. After that, Zhang De yelled outside, dismissed, all of you. Leave Sichuan County and get your own lives. From now on, you have no more ties with the Zhangs. Upon hearing that, a commotion broke out among the guards, none of them willing to leave. If you don't leave, what awaits you will be death. Do you get it? Seeing that the guards were still delaying leaving, Zhang De rebuked them with great frustration. Only then did the guards begin to move. However, before they took off, the guards knelt to the ground and made 3 kowtows to the parlor. Zhang De could not bring himself to watch anymore, turning his head to the other side. Right at that moment, the sound of horses galloping came from the distance. Wu Wei was overwhelmed with joy when he heard that sound. The Zhao's forces had finally arrived. The Zhaos were originally horse-riding thieves who possessed top-notch hunting and attacking skills. Even if the guards managed to leave House Zhang, they might not make it out alive. Having thought of that, he became relieved. After shooting a contemptuous glance at Zhangde, he pointed at Qinshin. Go ahead and kill this brat. Little beast, you fooled me. Zhangde was boiling with rage when he heard him. Gripping the teacup, he aimed it at Wu Wei. However, he could not exert the slightest bit of force with his hand, and the cup fell right in front of him. So what if I fooled you? A family of idiots. Wu Wei had a look of disdain on his face. He looked towards Qinshin once again, the look in his eyes terrifying. Beside him, the extremely ugly man raised his knife and slashed it towards Qinshin, who was seated on the guest seat. Icy light shimmered, and Zhang Xiaoya couldn't help but scream in fright. She couldn't imagine this extraordinary young man being brutally slaughtered. However, a moment later, the gush of blood did not come out as expected. The young man, who hadn't been moving all this time, was still sitting peacefully where he was. He was caressing the cup lid with one hand while looking at Wu Wei, the look on his face calm and serene. His other hand was clasping the incredibly sharp knife between. On the other hand, the ugly man couldn't withdraw the steel knife by an inch, no matter how much strength he used. All of a sudden, the parlor was filled with a deadly silence. It was so quiet that even the sound of needles falling to the ground was audible. You. Wu Wei pointed at Qinshin, so shocked that he couldn't speak a word. Didn't this brat drink the drug tea? He even drank more of it afterward, so why was he not affected even the slightest? Also, what kind of skill was that, clutching a sharp blade with your fingers? For a moment, his mind turned into a pile of mud. Qinshin turned to look at the big, ugly man, his brows creased into a slight frown. This thing was born way too ugly. Putting his upturned nose aside, there were a few centimeters of long hairs peeking out of his nostrils, not to mention his striking cock eyes and his hairstyle, which resembled that of a dog's kennel. Brother, were you hiding behind this wall of mine just now? Qinshin couldn't help but ask. How did you know? The big, ugly guy was still trying to free the knife with all his strength, replying to Qinshin's query subconsciously. Qinshin shook his head and heaved a soft sigh. Your unbridled temperament makes it impossible for me to not notice it even from across the wall. Brother, I don't mean to be mean to you, but when I first saw you, I thought my Lao Hei had turned into a human. Pff. Zhang Xiaoya, who had been sobbing, couldn't help but laugh. Brat, goddamn in you. The hideous-looking guy lost his cool at that moment and swung his leg toward Qinshin's delicate face. Qinshin did not give a big reaction to that. With a forceful pinch of his, an enormous strength was unleashed, breaking the tip of the knife's blade in an instant. Shortly after, he flung his fingers as fast as a lightning bolt. An icy ray flashed past. The ugly guy's movements came to a halt. Moments later, he collapsed in front of Qinshin with a loud thud. Expert. As the scene unfolded, the pupils of the leader of the 8 robust guys shrank with shock. Then he pounced onto Zhangde like a tiger attacking its prey. No matter what happened, the most crucial thing at this moment was to seize control of Zhangde. Qinshin sneered, and the couplet in his right hand flew forward all of a sudden, striking the big man's throat like a bullet. Blood spurted out, and the big man was killed right at that spot. After completing the series of actions, Qinshin finished the last bit of tea in his cup. Then, in a cold voice, he declared, whoever moves, they die. The parlor fell into a second round of silence. The 6 remaining burly men looked at Qinshin as if they were staring at a demon. No one dared to doubt the truth in the young man's words because the 2 dead bodies lying on the ground in front of them were the best pieces of evidence. As for Wu Wei, he could no longer conceal the dread in his eyes. He had considered the possibility that Lord Zhao might go back on his words afterward, but he never thought that he would encounter defeat right here, at this point of time. Right when he was becoming anxious and agitated, a commotion sounded outside the gates of House Zhang. Shortly after, 30 to 40 people barged inside. Before those people even arrived in the parlor, an aggressive, sonorous sound reverberated throughout the entire compound of House Zhang. Old man Zhang, I'm going to sully all the ladies of your family right in front of you today. I'll let you know how it feels to be so miserable, you'd rather die. Upon hearing the voice, the 6 remaining big guys in the house looked outside, as if they had found their pillar of strength. However, their legs remained glued to the ground. No one dared to budge. Moments later, a man with a curly beard and a face full of stark scars stepped into the parlor. Only then did those big guys begin to cry out and rant. Chief, there's an expert here. He killed 2 of our brothers. The big-sized man with a curly beard was, of course, the master of the Zhao family, Xiao Biao. As he stepped into the parlor and was greeted by the 2 corpses, his eyes switched from radiant to dismal. He had been told that all of Zhang's people had been seized, but why were some of his own subordinates dead? What happened here? Zhao Biao grabbed Wu Wei and questioned him angrily. It was him. Wu Wei bellowed in a forlorn, strident voice, pointing at Qinshan. He was so flabbergasted just now, he had to vent his fear immediately. Seeing that the great master was here, Qinshan was prepared to deploy the tactics he used on the Wangs once again. However, as he looked around the Zhang's wooden parlor, he frowned. If he used pyrokinesis here, the whole house would be burnt to ashes, wouldn't it? At this point, the people from the Zhang family were still unable to move. If chaos broke out later on and the awning struck one or two of them to death, he did not wish to shoulder the responsibility. Especially Zhang Xiaoya, who seemed to be tender and fragile. If she got licked by the flames, she would probably be disfigured. Who are you? Tell me your name and why you interfered with our business with the Zhangs? Right as he was being indecisive, Zhao Biao pointed his knife at him. Qinshan gave a soft sigh and stood up. He had wanted to sit back and settle everything at once, so he could feel what it was like to just chat and relax while watching the walls burn down. However, it seemed like that was impossible now. Right as he stood, all 6 of the robust men in the parlor subconsciously recoiled. Upon seeing the scene, a gloom shrouded Zhao Biao. How on earth did this ordinary-looking young man kill those 2? Why were his people so frightened of him? Who am I? Haha. Qinshan put on an upset look, sauntering toward Zhao Biao. Zhao Biao couldn't help but take a few steps back without realizing it, a cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. He was expecting the young man before him to reveal a ground-shaking identity that would make him shudder. Who am I? Let me tell you today. As he spoke, Qinshan walked to Zhang Ji's side and held him up. I am Zhang Ji's big brother. You can bully anyone, but if you ever lay a finger on my brother and his family, you are doomed. Qinshan spoke in a righteous and unhesitant manner, his voice loud and clear. Zhang Ji, who heard his words, was so agitated that he began to quiver, looking like he was on the verge of kneeling in front of Qinshan. With a brother like this, what more can I ask for? From now on, even if I have to die for the sake of my brother, I will not bat an eyelid. Zhang Ji swore to himself, his eyes glimmering with tears. Zhao Biao choked when he heard this. God damn it. This brat took such a long time just to say this nonsense? Are you freaking kidding me? Did I need to know that you have relations with the Zhangs? Nonetheless, despite the rage within him, he noticed the dead body on the ground through the corner of his eyes. More precisely, he noticed the couplet embedded in the throat of the dead body. This man's expertise is not to be belittled. We have to gang up to fight him. With that idea in mind, Zhao Biao took an abrupt step back and yelled, "Everyone, charge at once and destroy this brat." Right as he finished, 2 sidekicks who had followed him here without knowing what was really happening dashed towards Qinshan. They charged fast, but flew back even faster. With a couple of bangs, they were sent flying right past Zhao Biao and out of the parlor, as though they were hit by a horse carriage. He's splendid. Although Zhao Biao had traveled far and wide and seen a great deal, his eyes gleamed with a streak of fear. What was the matter with the young man before him? Was he born with divine strength, or had he just returned from some cultivation? Why did you stop? Qinshan stood with his hands behind his back. Standing at the center of the parlor, he seemed to be protecting the place against the tide of enemies. The people from the Zhang family were in awe of him as they watched the scene play out. As a brutal man, despite being startled, Zhao Biao did not give up. He hadn't forgotten that he still had a few dozen men outside the parlor. It was a pity that the parlor was too small for them to fully utilize their advantage in numbers. They had to lure the brat out to the yard and besiege him there. As the thought occurred to him, his gaze swerved and he yelled out in a harsh voice, "Brat, this place is too small for a full-scale fight. Do you have the guts to go out and fight me one-on-one?" Shinshin wished they could do that, but he pretended to be hesitant. Seeing that Shinshin did not immediately refuse, Zhao Biao felt secretly glad. He started instigating him soon after. "Brat, what now? You don't dare to do so? If you don't want to fight me, it's still not too late to kneel and beg me for some mercy. I could spare your life." Upon hearing those words, Shinshin's cheeks flushed red, seeming like an impetuous young man who could not bear to take any insults. "Why wouldn't I dare? But all of you have to be outside, and when I'm fighting you, your people can't offer you the slightest bit of help." Zhao Biao was delighted that Shinshin had been deceived, secretly calling him inside his mind. Hurriedly, he assured him, "I, Zhao Biao, am the local hero. How could I be someone who breaks promises? It will be one-on-one, just like I told you. If anyone else butts in, you may chop me to pieces." As he finished, Zhao Biao was afraid that Shinshin would change his mind, so he had all his men in the parlor retreat hastily, while also stepping outside himself. Right as he turned around, his face twisted with a smug, vicious smile. If oaths were real, he would have died countless times by now. This brat might be great, but he was young regardless. He was going to teach this brat a lesson and let him know how unpredictable human nature truly could be. However, he had no idea that Shinshin was also smiling. In fact, the brat was smiling even more gladly. "Little brother, that Zhao Biao always goes back on his words. Don't trust him." Zhang Do admonished him in worry. Shinshin waved his hand upon hearing his words. He walked outside, and right before he stepped out of the door, he turned to them and said, "It's fine. Today, I'm going to let him know that oaths should not be taken so simply." Walking out of the guest hall, Shinshin reached the Zhang family's compound. Being one of the top 3 families in Sichuan County, their compound was as large as 3 basketball fields. At that point, Zhao Biao was standing in the middle of the compound. Soon after Shinshin walked out, a group of horse thieves surrounded him. Upon seeing the scene, the edges of Shinshin's mouth rose, speaking to Zhao Biao. "What about that?" Listening to this, Zhao Biao, who wasn't far away, laughed. "Can't you see what I mean? I may have had a hard time incapacitating you in the guest hall, but now that you're out, I can outnumber you with ease." Shinshin was not surprised at all. Instead, he looked at Wang Wei, who was next to Zhao Biao, and asked him, "Wu Wei, is this the trustworthy hero you spoke about? Seems like just an average bandit to me." Sweat dripped down Wu Wei's face. Seeing Zhao Biao's technique of forfeiting promises, he grew more and more worried about the promise Zhao had made with him. Would he just get rid of me afterwards? Wu thought. Considering this, his legs softened, and he knelt in front of Zhao Biao. Lord Biao, I was being foolish before. Please forget everything about half of the Zhang's properties in Zhangshaya. I want them no more. I only desire to be of service to Lord Biao." Wu Wei's words came out with much sniveling and tears. Apparently, he was very frightened. Zhao Biao rubbed Wu Wei's head upon hearing his words, his face somewhat satirical. "Wu Wei, you voluntarily forfeited these." "I kept my promise." Yes. I forfeited these." "Lord Biao is a fine specimen of a man. How will he be untrustworthy?" Wu Wei kowtowed as if he was a hammer pounding garlic. At this point, he only sought to stay alive. He had no brain power left to consider anything else. Zhao Biao nodded in satisfaction, then pointed his knife at Shinshin, saying ferociously, "I am trustworthy to the average person, but expect retaliation by all means if you kill my brothers. Brothers, move together, let's retaliate for our dead brothers." The group of horse bandits immediately began to mobilize. In no time, dozens of people were dashing towards Shinshin. Shinshin laughed. Inside his body, ethereality rushed to his finger at insane speeds. All of his fingers sparkled with fire. As the dozen people were about to chop him into pieces, Shinshin jumped up several meters into the air. Then, with a dance of his 10 fingers, 10 bursts of fire descend into the air, hitting the 10 closest from him. In no time, those 10 burned like oil-soaked torches. By the time Shinshin landed softly, all 10 had been burned to ashes. With a breeze, the dark ash floated around the ground for some distance. By that point, the presence of these 10 people was long gone from the world. After killing the 10, Shinshin raised one hand, his 5 fingers sparkling with fire. He then looked at the horse bandits around him, all of them stunned, and laughed. I was intending to have a melee with your leader. Now that he refuses to recognize his promise, don't blame me for burning you." The horse bandits, looking at the ash and machetes laying on the ground and the fire in Qinchen's hands, couldn't help but shiver from fear. They looked to Zhao Biao with despair in their eyes. The smile on Zhao Biao's face had long frozen, his eyes filled with nothing but fear. He never would have dreamed of the Zhangs getting a fairy, one that even knew how to use spells. In his eyes, fairies didn't bother with these civil affairs. Consider the county magistrate, who was practicing in unknown places despite all the fights occurring between the three households. Why did this fairy in front of him even bother with this? As he shivered without any idea of what to do next, a running horse dashed in from the street. One of his subjugates jumped from the horse, kneeling down on one knee. "Boss, major issue. The Wangs are eliminated. Per some spectators, it was done by a fairy that can burn people into ashes with just his fingertips. Should we keep a lower profile?" After this, another breeze swept through, blowing black ash into this horse bandit's eyes, forcing him to rub them. That's when he realized that the mood of the scene seemed rather weird. After looking at the young man with the calm face surrounded by horse bandits and black ash, his pupils shrunk abruptly as he took in the full situation. "Oh my God, we are done." Suddenly, a thought flashes through his mind. With a quick idea, this horse bandit stood up immediately, got onto the horse, and made a standard fist and palm salute. He said, "Sorry, you aren't my boss. I recognized the wrong person. Excuse me." Immediately afterwards, he spanks the horses, leaving Zhang compound at several times the speed he came in, as if a tiger was following behind him. This man came quickly and left just as fast, leaving many of the horse bandits confused. By the time they realized what had happened, further attempts to fight were already out of the question. As they tossed their machetes away and dashed away, the compound soon descended into chaos. Qinchen dashed forward and caught Zhao Biao's shoulder. Dragging him, he flipped Zhao Biao onto the ground. "Zhao Biao, where are you going?" "Lord Fairy, mercy. I give all my wealth and treasure to you." Zhao Biao kowtows as if he's a hammer pounding garlic, exactly like Wu Wei did earlier. "What have you sworn?" Qinchen asks from atop. Thinking of his oath, Zhao Biao gave himself a hard slap, crying, "Lord Fairy, please don't take that seriously. I was only making a joke." "Lord Fairy, please don't take it seriously. Aren't you a hero of the area? Aren't you retaliating for your brothers?" "What hero? I am a piece of feces. Neither are those my brothers. I don't even know them." Zhao Biao had forfeited all etiquette for his life. He slapped his face as he talked, and his face swelled up before he knew it. Some weirdness was present in Qinchen's eyes. He spoke in a solemn tone. "I heard that true heroes don't care about minor issues and can tolerate shame for revenge. Zhao Biao, I think you're the real hero." Zhao Biao's eyes immediately filled up with fear. Before he could hear anything, a ray of flame grew bigger and bigger in his eye. The next thing he knew, he was on fire. After killing Zhao Biao, Qinchen looked at Wu Wei, who had collapsed on the side, the areas below him already wet. "Wu Wei, I heard you were going to be of full service to Lord Biao. Is that true?" Wu Wei, looking at Zhao Biao, surrounded by flames, shook his head as if he was a chaff sift. He hugged Qinchen's thigh and cried, "Fairy, I was being forced into it. All of this was forced onto me by Zhao Biao. I didn't want to betray my uncle. Uncle's family has given me so much mercy. How can I do anything bad to them? Especially my cousin. He gives me the finest of attention, and I feel there's not enough time in the day to appreciate him. Fairy, if you are my cousin's brother, you are my brother. Brother, don't kill me." Qinchen did not say a word at the sight before him. Instead, he sent Wu Wei flying with a light kick, sending him straight into the parlor. The people from the Zhang family had clearly seen what had happened outside, still dumbfounded at the moment. They only came back to their senses when Wu Wei came flying in and collapsed right before their eyes. "Uncle, I really was being forced by them. You have to believe me." Wu Wei fell hard, but his strong survival instincts made him quickly scramble to his feet and hold onto Zhang De's legs. Zhang De scowled as he saw this, but he did not speak. So Wu Wei had no choice but to embrace Zhang Ji's legs instead. "Cousin, do you remember how we used to play together when we were kids? Please forgive me this time. When the next recruitment begins, I will go and join the army and be a good man." Although Zhang Ji wasn't a smart person, he had a clear sense of what was right and what wasn't. When he finished listening to Wu Wei, his eyes were filled not with sympathy, but disgust. Moments later, Qinchen stepped into the parlor, with a person held in his hands. It was the steward of the Zhaos, who had previously been captured. "Old Zhao, did you people force Wu Wei to betray the Zhangs?" Chen asked casually, finding a spot to seat himself. Steward Zhao was scared witless by then. Shaking his head, he replied, "No, definitely no. Our chief didn't believe this brat from the start. It was the brat who revealed young Lord Zhang's whereabouts first. We sent our people to check it out, and they really happened to run into young Lord Zhang, who was all by himself. Only after that did our chief believe him." Upon hearing this, Wu Wei was frightened out of his wits. He never expected Steward Zhao, who had directly arranged the matters with him, to be caught and brought to House Zhang. You're slinging mud at me." Steward Zhao did not bother with Wu Wei's accusation. Continuing, "This morning, he informed us again that young Lord Zhao would head for a nearby village to ask for help, and asked us to stop him on his way and kill him. He even asked us for drugs." Zhang Ji could no longer stand what he heard. He closed his eyes, misery written all over his face. One could imagine just how it would feel to be betrayed by a close relative. "Do you need me to do it for you?" Chen asked. "No need," Zhang Ji stated firmly. He opened his eyes abruptly, filled with firm resolution. While holding him up just now, Chen had resolved most of the drugs in his body with his ethereality, so he was almost fully recovered at this point. Looking at Wu Wei, Zhang Ji unsheathed his own sword. "Cousin, I beg your mercy." Chen absented himself from the familial affairs of the Zhangs and carried Steward Zhao outside. As he went, he demanded, "Give me a reason not to kill you. Immortal, I know where Zhao Biao's little treasury is. I can bring you there." Steward Zhao replied in a trembling voice. He had come up with this life-saving pretext while he was imprisoned by the Zhangs, so he spoke with great eloquence. "Aside from bullion and money, there are also some fabulous treasures in Zhao Biao's little treasury, which we robbed from a wealthy family of the state when we held them hostages. For that, we even lost about 100 of our men. Later, Zhao Biao came and hid at Sichuan County, presenting several items from those treasures to the county magistrate. That was how he managed to get away with it." As he listened to the story, Chen put on an interested look. However, he was in no hurry. If he were to raid the treasury, he had to bring along the man of luck, Zhang Ji. With him around, surprises emerged from everywhere, even if there weren't any in the first place. An hour later, the Zhang's affairs finally came to an end. Wu Wei was killed with a strike of sword and all the guards were summoned back. After this encounter, their guards became even more loyal than before. Zhang De was extremely grateful toward Chen. At first, he did not take it to heart when Zhang Ji mentioned marrying Zhang Xiaya to Chen, but he was serious about it now. This was an immortal that they were talking about, after all. If his daughter could marry him and benefit from his ethereality, it would seem like a good idea. As the thought occurred to him, he became a little embarrassed and said, "My daughter Xiaya has reached a suitable age for marriage." Before he could even finish his words, a loud shout reverberated through the parlor out of nowhere. Absolutely not. It was the same words as before, but this time around, Zhang Ji was the one who had spoken them. He had a solemn look on his face, appearing extremely serious. Zhang De was rather unhappy about it. It was him who had brought up marrying his younger sister to Chen, but it was also him who said no to it now. What did he really want? Was he fooling around? With Zhang De's stare pinned on him, Zhang Ji stood up, his eyes filled with reverence and admiration as he looked at Chen. "At first, I really wanted to marry my sister to Brother Chen, but I've changed my mind now. It is pointless to say how incredible Brother Chen's personality is, and more importantly, how extraordinarily talented he is. In the future, I am sure he will live for a very long time in this world. In comparison, my sister is only an ordinary woman. How could a short-living mortal stay by Brother Chen's side forever? Therefore, after pondering on it for a long time, I think it will be a grievance to Brother Chen if we let my sister marry him. For a man like Brother Chen, I won't be surprised if he marries a fairy from the heavens." Chen's eyes couldn't help but twitch as Zhang Ji waxed poetry about it. If it was someone else who was flattering him, he would not take it seriously, as he knew it was just pretense. However, Zhang Ji was speaking from the bottom of his heart, which made him rather different. Looking at Zhang Xiaya, who seemed disappointed and aggrieved, Chen thought of Arya from the neighbor's house. Chen thought that it wouldn't be a grievance if he married Zhang Xiaya. At least, his parents would certainly be pleased. In fact, before he could finish his sentence, Zhang Ji cut him off again. Brother Chin, you don't have to bother about my sister's feelings. It is better for her to recognize this reality sooner rather than later. Brother, you are such a pain in the neck. Zhang Xiaya, who had been sitting quietly, could not stand it anymore. She stomped her feet angrily and ran outside, vanishing into the bedroom beside the parlor. Jier, how could you speak of your own sister that way? How dare you? Lady Zhang grumbled, her eyes glistening with tears as she saw her daughter running away. As Qinshin looked at the beautiful figure running out, he felt rather sorry. Thus, he muttered in a barely audible voice, "Brother, it is all right for me to take some grievances. It's not a big deal." Upon hearing this, Zhang Ji heaved a soft sigh and said with an upset look on his face, "Brother Qin, you haven't realized how outstanding you are yet. Every marriage has to be compatible. It is not an empty saying. In fact, it is very reasonable." Qinshin was speechless when he heard that. This Zhang Ji seemed overly bewitched by him, turning into a diehard fan of his. However, Zhang Ji did not notice the shift in his mentality. Looking at the bedroom where his sister had escaped, he went on, "Brother Chun, have you ever heard that beauty is a danger?" Qinshin nodded subconsciously, but did not understand why that had anything to do with him. Could Zhang Ji be fearing that his sister would bring him harm? It wasn't that serious, was it? Unexpectedly, Zhang Ji turned around and patted him his shoulder. With a somber look, he said,
Yo, what's good, Amadeus? How you doing today? Just playing a bit of World of Warcraft. I'm not sure how long ago that message was. Sorry that I'm only seeing it now.
"Brother Chin, with your talents, once you step into the world of cultivation, countless extraordinary young girls will be awaiting you there, all of them falling for you. There might be some devils and demons with malicious intentions among them as well. Would they allow an ordinary woman like my sister to own you, Brother Chin? Once they begin to have evil thoughts, my sister's life will be on the line. Thus, Brother Chin, I beg for your understanding." Qinshin rubbed his ear, thinking he must have misheard something. So Zhang Ji was actually talking about him when he called beauty a danger? That was an overstatement, wasn't it? However, Zhang Ji wasn't looking at him, but at the sky in the distance. He mumbled under his breath, "I already have the feeling that there is about to be a major calamity in the world of cultivation." Upon hearing that, Qinshin's breath caught in his throat, and he nearly passed out. "Ahem, then I won't marry your sister." Qinshin was feeling resigned. However, their top priority wasn't to discuss this matter, but to deal with the affairs of the Zhao family and the Wang family. The two of them discussed these matters for a while, then completed the negotiations. Of course, all of the various properties of the Wang family would undoubtedly be handed over to Qinshin. As for the Zhao family's properties, each man would take half of them. However, the Zhang family needed to solve all the troublesome handover issues for Qinshin, along with dealing with all kinds of inquiries from the county government. Half a day later, everything was settled. Qinshin and Zhang Ji were led by steward Zhao to the Zhao family compound. The Zhao family compound was much bigger than the Wang and Zhang family compounds. However, since Zhao Biao was a horse thief with no family, the compound looked very empty. There had been a few adopted sons earlier, but now they were mostly dead. Several of Zhao Biao's concubines, who were bought from a brothel, had run away after hearing something had happened to Zhao Biao. Zhao's house was quite a mess now. Don't worry. Zhao Biao's little treasure box must be locked down tight. Those girls could never have opened it. Steward Zhao led the two to Zhao Biao's bedroom while he explained the situation, fully demonstrating his worth. In a few moments, the men were inside Zhao Biao's bedroom. Zhao Biao's bedroom was large, but the precious things in it were long gone, leaving only a bed big enough to accommodate 3 or 4 people. When Steward Zhao saw this, he got onto the bed, threw away the blanket, and began to tap on the bed. Dang, dang, dang. The heavy sound revealed that the bottom was solid. Seeing this, Chen was surprised. Did Steward Zhao not know where the treasure box was? It's not under the bed? Then why did Thief Zhao get such a big bed? Steward Zhao panicked, then jumped out of bed and knocked on all of the walls, still finding nothing. Zhang Ji looked at the bed more and more suspiciously. He wanted to climb onto the bed and try it himself, but Chen stopped him. It won't be under the bed. Otherwise, when he was playing the Symphony of Love, there would be noises from under the bed, and any idiot would know that it was hollow underneath. Zhao Biao's concubines were not a faithful group, something Zhao knew too, so he wouldn't have let them know where his treasure box was. What Symphony of Love? Zhang Ji looked confused. He didn't understand what Chen was saying. Just then, Steward Zhao plopped down and kneeled in front of Chen. Immortal, I really did see it with my own eyes. Zhao Biao took treasures out of his bedroom. Chen ignored him and asked the system in his mind, is there any secret room or treasure chest within 15 meters? 40 centimeters under the feet of the person in front of the host. The system responded quickly. The person in front of Chen was naturally Zhang Ji, who was frowning at this time, as if he was still wondering what a symphony of love was. Chen looked at him in sympathy. Dear bro, please move your feet. Zhang Ji was still confused, but he made way. Chen walked to where he previously was and stomped heavily on the floor. Dang, dang, dang. It still seemed to be a solid sound, but after careful observation, one could tell that there was a slight difference. If he didn't know that there was a treasure trove below, it would be difficult to discern this small difference. However, since he already knew in advance, he was aware of the change. Without hesitation, Chen bent down and smashed the 2 adjacent floor tiles into powder. Then he stepped back half a meter, grabbed the middle floor tile with both hands, and used a lot of force. Clang! Along with the sound of colliding stones, a 40-centimeter thick floor tile was lifted by Chen, revealing the dark tunnel hidden below. With the weight of this stone brick alone, most people wouldn't be able to lift it, so they won't know of any mechanism here. Even if there was no mechanism, this stone brick would be enough to stop many people. How many treasures are under here, making Zhao Biao so cautious? Chen put the stone brick aside, with some expectation in his heart, but he was not in a hurry to go down. He looked at Steward Zhao. Steward Zhao was sweating profusely at this time. Of course, he understood what Chen wanted. He quickly crawled inside the opening and led the way. When Zhang Ji saw this, he said with some embarrassment, Brother Chen, you discovered this treasure trove. The contents inside belong to you. I won't go down there. Instead, I will stay outside to keep watch. Hey, you are my brother. You have a share. How can a mere treasure match our brotherly bond? Chen waved his hand and said righteously. Was he kidding? He resisted using the system to find out what was the most valuable thing inside because he wanted Zhang Ji, the lucky charm, to check it out first. How could Zhang Ji not go in? Zhang Ji was touched once he heard those words. He didn't refuse, going straight into the tunnel before Chen. He swore to himself that if there was any danger within that Steward Zhao couldn't prevent, then he would stop it. The 3 of them went into the tunnel, which led to a secret room. There were no hidden traps inside, only 8 large boxes. Presented with the kind of scene that could only be seen on TV in his previous life, Chen couldn't help but walk toward one box. He opened it with a face filled with expectations. Yet, instead of jewels and riches, all Chen saw was a pile of junk. Rusty knives, tattered clothing, women's camisoles, whips, shackles, and other messy things. It seemed that they were all Zhao Biao's mementos. If they were sold, they would be worth a few taels of silver. Bad luck. Chen cursed to himself. He picked the middle box, but how come this was all he got? He smiled sheepishly and looked at Zhang Ji. Brother, you can open the rest of the boxes. Zhang Ji didn't think too much when he heard those words. He unconditionally followed his elder brother's order. After walking to the first box, he opened it abruptly and without any skill. A second later, countless rays of light shot out from the inside, the glare making Steward Zhao walk back a few steps. DMN, a box of gems and pearls. It's worth tens of thousands of taels. Why is the difference between people so big? After Qinshin saw the contents clearly, he had to cuss in his mind. Zhang Ji's eyes flashed in shock too when he saw the box of treasures. He knew that the Zhao family was rich, but he didn't think they were this rich. Just this box of gems and...
Yo, what's going on, Amadeus? I saw the message earlier and I said hey, but you didn't answer for a while. How you doing today? Not much, yo, not much. Just playing a bit of World of Warcraft. Trying to see if I can get some level. Not trying to see, but getting some levels on my my Ice Mage character. Ooh, okay, so that. So I need 2, so probably gonna have to get this at 50. Oof. It's making me feel warm. And yeah, picked up some of that farm I took care of. Alright, cool. Let me finish out this dungeon real quick, and I'll take a look at it. Oof. How come he's how come he's how come he's brown and I'm like a purple color? Oh, okay. I see. So, I see. It's because he's a night elf. He's from the what do you call it? Forward side. So that form is probably the troll. I think trolls are the only ones who can be, is it trolls that can be a druid, or the only ones who was able to be a druid at that time? So the design is designed around a troll. Ooh, 300% XP. Hopefully, with this, I'll be able to get level 50. Even though my XP is way at the beginning. Wait, are you still fighting over there? What's going on? Get your butt over here. Stones. So I did all of the ones that you don't need to fight. And then I decided to just, wait to see when you can help me. So yeah, I have not, after getting the three, ooh, so close to leveling. After getting the three, after getting the three ones without fighting, I decided to hop off the game for a bit. Well, it was getting late, so I decided to hop off the game and wait until probably later today. Okay, let's go fight something to get some XP so I can level up. Yeah, if you can help, if you can help me out later with some of them, that'd be great. Around maybe, well, like usual, maybe around like 7, 8 o'clock, I'll probably hop on. Okay, Japan. Oh, you know what? I'm actually almost 50. So, I could probably go to... Cool. I would go to the Blessed Land, but... yeah, that's what I was doing until until yesterday. I was just, I would look out to see what, the shouts and stuff like that, see if anybody's doing them. But because I didn't see anyone doing them, no one shouting out for them and stuff like that, I decided, you know what, might as well just do what I can. Because I knew that there was going to be some fight. I just didn't know it was going to be like half of them was supposed to be fights. Like you needed to fight something in order to get half of them. But I did know that you had to like fight some of them to get the couple of them. Right now, not a lot of people are doing it. A lot of people probably passed this particular one, and but I have been seeing a lot of shouts for others, yeah, the higher ones. Not particularly. I think it's, what was it, 4 or 5? I can't remember which was, but I was seeing people shout for like 10 or maybe like 9 and stuff like that. But I have not seen anyone shouting for the ones that I'm on at the moment. Chocolate cookie. I got these in-ear headphones, but they're trash. They suck so bad.
Pearls was twice the fortune of the Zhang family. Brother Chen were rich. Even Zhang Ji, who was from a prominent family, was excited at this moment.
I forgot.
Don't get emotional. Open more boxes. Chen voluntarily moved away from those boxes, afraid that the anger inside of him might affect Zhang Ji's performance. Zhang Ji continued to open the boxes. The second box, full of gold, was worth tens of thousands of taels. The third box, full of silver, was worth 7,000 or 8,000 taels.
So
the fourth box was full of magical weapons. Who knew where Zhao Yao snatched them? Their value was unknown.
The fifth
box contained rare things like corals,
you can get
the
one of
value
these.
which was also
But this
unknown.
right here is
The
basically
box held a bunch of real estate
this right here is
titles,
basically a
servant
taxi
deeds,
mount.
and the like, all with unknown
You pay a certain amount of gil,
There wasn't
and
much
it
stuff in the
takes you
seventh
to
box,
whatever location
with
you
only
want.
a few
But
ordinary-looking
you
stones,
can get
a
one of this
gray-colored
mount
bead, and a small token.
at
Chen
I
didn't
think
know
it's
what
like
the beads and
close
tokens
to
were,
level 70,
but as a cultivator,
because
he
it's a
felt a
flying
strong
mount, and you can
aura
only
coming from
fly.
those stones.
These mounts can
The
only
last
fly
box
at level
doesn't seem to
70.
be worth much,
But
Zhang
yes,
Ji said.
this one
Looking
right
at the
here,
stones
you
with
can get this one for
dissatisfaction.
gold.
Chen
It'll be
Shen's
a
eyes
couple
twitched
hundred,
when he
you know,
heard
a couple
that,
hundred
and he
gold,
couldn't
but
speak for a while.
you can get this
As for
for
whether this
gold.
last box was really
And
as worthless as
they
Zhang
have
Ji
different
thought,
ones.
he would
Like
find out when he asked the system.
this
System,
gold one.
what is the
So
most
depending on
valuable
what
thing
race
within
you're
15
playing, depending on
meters?
what race you're
Chen
playing
asked
as,
in his mind.
each race
The
has
spiritual
a
elixir
particular
in the
race
box in
mount.
front of you.
This right here is the
It
race
contains
mount
most
for
of the
the
power
dwarfs.
of a 200-year-old spirit. Hearing this
So
answer,
this one
Chen
right here is the
naturally
one that I
looked at
got
the
because
gray bead
my
in the
character is a
last
dwarf.
box. Just as he thought,
This one right here,
although the things in this box
this
looked
one
ordinary,
you
they
can
were
pay
very
for this,
valuable.
but you
Far
can
more
also
valuable than those treasures. The
where's
second
that?
most valuable, the medium-grade spirit
So you
stone
can
in the
also get
box in
this
front of
doing
you.
the
Third
seasonal
most
events.
valuable, the special
And the
soft
seasonal
armor in the box
events,
2 meters to the left.
When you unlock
Chen
it,
Chen
it allows
asked
you
about each
to
item, but
gather
the system
seasonal
did not mention the
points,
small token,
and then
so
using
he
those
took the
seasonal
token out of the
points,
box and looked at it carefully. The token had an animal-shaped mark, with no description
using those
in
seasonal
words.
points, you can
Chen
unlock
guessed that it could be a
certain
token and was
certain
important
things, like
symbolically.
certain clothes design,
Steward
certain
Zhao,
armor
did you rob
design,
these things from the same person? Did you rob an
certain
immortal?
mounts.
Chen pointed to the last
Like
box
it's
and looked at Steward Zhao. Whether it was the spiritual
these are
inner
seasonal
elixir
stuff, so
or the
they're
spirit
free.
stone, these were not
You just have
things
to play through
ordinary
the
people
game
could
in
have
order to
owned.
get them.
But if Xiao Biao was able to
And
rob an immortal, why
this
did
is
he
also
die
a seasonal
so
mount as
pathetically?
well.
Steward Zhao smiled with embarrassment when he
So
heard the
you
question.
use
The young
seasonal
man we
points
robbed
to
was
do
not an
these.
immortal, but he was extremely skilled in martial arts. At the time, we had more than 100 men and horses. Under our siege, he only died after slaying nearly 100 of us.
So the dwarves
Later,
have
Zhao
the
Biao
ram,
felt that he might have provoked someone who shouldn't be provoked,
the
so he hid in Sichuan
gnomes, the
County.
little tiny
Chen
people.
frowned upon hearing this.
They the ones that
person was
look
not
like
an immortal, but
towers.
still had all these things. In all
They
likelihood,
have
he was an immortal
robot
disciple like
chickens.
Zhang Ji.
Like their
Only his family
mounts are
background was
robot
many
chickens.
times better than Zhang
The
Ji's.
humans are
It was
horses.
very likely that there were immortals among
The
his
night
elders,
elves,
and that was how he
their
was able to
mount
carry
is
such precious things with him. At that thought, Chen tucked
their
away the
mounts,
token into his clothes,
tigers,
also taking the spirit stone and the inner elixir. Then
Draenei.
he looked at Zhang Ji,
Their
saying,
mounts
"Brother,
are
the items in this last box
elephants,
are the items needed
because
for
the
immortal
Draenei, they're
cultivation.
basically
Please allow me to take them. As for the
let me
items
see,
in the
huh?
other boxes, you can take whatever you want. When you officially start the path of cultivation in the future, I will find a way to compensate you." Hearing these words, Zhang Ji waved his hand away and said with a serious face, "Brother Chen, no need to talk about compensation. If it weren't for you, the Zhang family would have been annihilated. Everything here is yours." The two talked politely some more. They finally decided not to touch the surprise
So
creatures,
this right here,
leaving them in this secret
this
room
is
to
the
use
mount.
later, if needed. The Zhao house would
This
now
right here is
belong
the
to
mount
Chen.
for the
With
the
this
gnomes.
big house,
This is
Chen
what their
wouldn't allow
mounts
his
look
parents
like.
to live in the earthen house in Stone Village anymore. Of course, the furniture would have to be replaced, or it would be unlucky. After their discussion, the two men left the secret room.
Basically,
As
the
for
one that
Steward
looked like
Zhao, he was not a good person,
the one that
and he
looks
knew the
like
location of the secret room
cows.
too.
These
So
are their
Chen
mounts.
did not let him
Their
live.
mounts look like this.
However, since he did help them, Chen
the
permitted
rams
him
and the
to have a whole
dwarves.
corpse. Now that
The
this is
horses
done,
are
I have to go
the
home.
humans.
In 2 days, I will bring my parents to live here in the county, Qinshin told
Is that
Zhang Ji
around? It
before
doesn't look like
parting.
a mount.
Zhang Ji patted his chest and promised, Brother
What else?
Qin,
What else?
don't worry. By the time you come back, I will have cleaned up this mansion for you and have enough maids and such available for your use. Sorry to trouble you. Qinshin thanked him with cupped hands. He didn't need to do many things with a younger brother around, which made him feel very
The
relaxed.
tigers.
He just didn't know what to expect when returning to the village,
night
such as how his
elves.
parents and villagers would react when they found out that the Wang family had been destroyed, or all their assets were now his. Heh, they'd probably all want to marry off their daughters to me. Qinshin thought to himself, showing a smile on his lips. On the way back to the village, Qinshin thought some more,
There should be
then took out the token and burned it.
others here that I
This
can
thing
show
could
you,
possibly
but
identify its owner. If he encountered an acquaintance of the real owner in the future, it would be hard to explain. Instead of more misunderstandings occurring later on, it was better to burn it now. After burning the token, Qinshin took out the spiritual
skeleton
inner elixir
horses,
and stuffed it into
these
his
are the
mouth
mounts for the
before quickly
undeads.
spitting it out. System, what can I eat within a 15-meter radius? The horse under you, the weeds on the roadside, the leaves 8 meters away,
Ooh,
the mushrooms under the
I wanna
rocks
get this
11
so
meters
bad.
away. The
This looks
system
so
mentioned
cool.
many things, but not the inner elixir in his hand. Qinshin wiped cold sweat from his forehead. Fortunately, he was smart and had asked the system first. Otherwise, he would have been in trouble. Is there anything nearby that will kill me if I eat it? The inner elixir in the hand of the host. This time the system did not hesitate, immediately mentioning the inner elixir. Is there something nearby that can eat this inner elixir? Qinshin did not believe the answer he was given, phrasing his question differently this time. If things went on like this, he thought, sooner or later, I will become a master of language, maybe even a philosopher. The host's horse could eat it. Qinshin was speechless. So this inner elixir cannot be eaten by humans? Only by animals?
Ooh,
Maybe
I
it's
want to
better
get this
to let my
bike
Lao
as
Hei eat it.
well.
Maybe it can make Lao Hei powerful. Qinshin thought,
These
beginning
are
to
so
speed up his
freaking
pace.
cool, man. These
He had
bikes.
already searched this route when he came, so he didn't search again on his way back. Before he knew it, the familiar stone tablet in Stone Village was within his sight.
Ugh,
By
that
now,
looks so
the
good.
bodies at the entrance of the village had been cleaned up. Additionally, 3 people were standing there, the old village chief and his parents. Looking at his
see it.
deeply worried parents, Qinshin felt
That's
a bit
the
of sorrow in his heart.
the cow people.
Although his soul did not belong to this world, his body did, and it was created by his mom after many months. Therefore, in his heart, Chun Shan and Qin Ro were his parents. And if he
these
wanted to go to the
wolves
Tianyan clan,
are
he must leave his hometown and be far away
cow
from his
people.
parents.
Yeah, let me
Although
show
he
you.
was reluctant to go, he must go there to cultivate immortality.
Let me show you.
He was born into this world of
So,
immortality. If he
there,
didn't cultivate
there
immortality and go
1,
out to see
2,
the
3,
world before him,
4,
how could he be worthy of his
1,
ability
2,
to time travel?
3, 4.
How could he be
There are
worthy
a
of the
good number
incredible
of races
system?
in the game.
What's more, his parents were so overworked year-round that, although they were
I
not
can't think of the number off the top of my head. Ugh, come on. Do. Okay, so we have the humans. We got the humans. We got the dwarves. We got the night elves. We got the gnomes. Then we have the Draenei. And then we got the orcs. Oh, so as you can see, there are 2 different sides, the Alliance and the Hordes, and they're basically at the start of the game, or at the very first Warcraft games, they were against each other. They were enemies because these orcs, they were from a different world that came to Earth basically and started warring with the human race, and after they lost the war and stuff like that, they were trapped on Earth, but it's not called Earth, it's called Azeroth. So they were trapped on Azeroth, and so they decided to make their own faction, which is the Horde. And on the Horde side, they have the orcs, they have the undead, they have the Tauren, which are the cow race. They look like bipedal cows. Then you got the trolls, and then you have the blood elves. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the 10 races in the game that you can choose from. And depending on which side you choose from, you will be automatically part of, each faction. And because each factions are at war with each other, you like people from the Horde side cannot go into cities or towns that belong to the Alliance, and people from the Alliance cannot go to any of the cities or towns belonging to the Horde. Because the minute you try to go there, you'll see that you'll see that the people from the opposite faction are hostile to you. I think I heard before everyone was Horde, and if you ever chose Alliance, you were pretty much. Not really, not really. Maybe like back in the day, like at the very beginning, a lot of people did choose. There was more Horde than there were Alliance, but as time go by and stuff like that, it started balancing each other. People started playing, Alliance and stuff like that. The reason why is because the Horde and the Alliance, they have two separate stories, basically two separate mission lines and stuff like that. And I think it was up to the Lich King. Was it the Lich King? Oh, I can't remember when it was they started actually, because there's no main story in the game. There's just like missions inside of certain areas and stuff like that you can do. But you can kind of gather a lore around a lot of the quests and stuff like that. And then I think it was around Lich King was when they actually started implementing a main story for the game. And when you play through the main story, the Alliance and the Horde side have two separate sides of the story that you can actually play through. So a lot of people started making Alliance characters and Horde characters and playing both sides in order to get like the full story, which is pretty cool. So one of the, for instance, on the Alliance side, there's this event known as the Burden of Teldrassil, and it's basically the home of the Night Elves is this giant tree. And the tree was so big that you're able to actually build towns and cities and stuff like that on top of the tree. That's how big it was. It's a full map, basically. It's a whole entire map. So during that story plot, on your Alliance side, you'll be there basically trying to stop the tree from burning. But on the Horde side, you will be the one who's burning down the tree, which is pretty interesting. Would you rather I don't drop full F-bombs? I forgot you're not really into the swearing thing. Hey, this is an 18 plus stream, so you can go ahead and do that. I'd be dropping the F-bombs, so I'm okay with it. I got no problem with it. I must be thinking of another game. Then not sure why I thought that with Horde. No, you are right. There is at the very beginning. You're probably like remembering like old stuff from like plus 10 years ago. Because at the very beginning there was a lot more Horde players than there are Alliance players. But as I said, as Lich King came out and other expansions after the Lich King, there were two separate stories for each Alliance, and people would create and stuff like that, and then it started balancing each other out during Cataclysm, Warlords of Draenor and stuff like that. It started balancing each other out. So yeah, you're right about that. There was more Horde characters before. So over here, you see this Teldrassil right here. This whole entire island right here. It's not an island. It's an actual tree. Like you can see the roots at the sides of it. And there's a whole entire city up here. There are small little towns over here that you can see. It's a whole map. with forests, caves, um, all kind of stuff. It is a huge tree. Like it is huge. It's so big that when you're standing around it and you look up, you can't even see the top of the tree, and because it's so big, and um in order to make sure that the game don't lag while staying close to it, most of it is like blurred out. You can't see the whole tree when you fly around it. It's pretty cool. It's really cool.
Not yet in their 40s, they already had gray hair. How long would they stay alive in this world if they lived naturally? If he cultivated immortality, he might have the opportunity to take his parents on the immortal path in the future, allowing them to live forever. I have to cultivate immortality, but before leaving, I must take care of my parents. Qinshan made up his mind. He lightly patted the horses behind, speeding towards the stone tablet. In moments, Qinshan and his wife, both at the entrance of Stone Village, saw their son. The wrinkles on their faces faded slightly, suddenly going from extremely worried to very relaxed. Qinshan dismounted the horse magnanimously and walked up to his parents. Smiling, he said, "Dad, Mom, I have destroyed the Wang family. The matter of Wang Hu claiming military merits that aren't his has also been solved by the county magistrate. From now on, we, the Qins, will take charge of the Wang's properties and farmlands." What? Before Qinshan and Qin Ro could say anything, the old village chief exclaimed in surprise. "Nothing much. It's
Add
only
to
about 50
Ascension, add
hectares
to
of farmlands and a
scroll.
dozen shops. It's not a big deal, is it? It's not really worth mentioning." Qinshan smiled placidly,
I
looking
see the
casual and
numbers pop
composed.
up when
He was an
you
expert at posing.
hover
After all, he
over
had seen
some of
lots of rich
these
men posing in
areas.
his previous life.
Is that just the
Phrases like small
level
goals,
range
quite a
from
big
the
deal,
little
face
chunk?
blind,
So
ordinary
yes,
people.
So back in the day, there would be a very linear level progression. So basically, you start off in one of the main cities, and as you level out, you'll go to like certain areas. Like for instance, over here, it's supposed to be 1 to 15. From here, this other place right here, you can see it's 1 to 60. That's not how it used to be in the beginning. What happened is, as time goes on, what they did is they made level progression. They try to change up level progression a bit. So let's say if you followed a specific route and you level up in a specific route from 1 to 6, like 1 to 50, and you come back to one of these areas, you can actually go back to certain areas, and you can still be able to level up in those areas as well. So because this Duskwood, it's supposed to be a level 20 to 25 or 20 to 26. That's how it's supposed to be. But if you did not level up here during your 20s, you can always come back here and like in your 40s and your 50s and level up here and still be able to get the experience you need from these areas until level 60. Same with here, 30 and stuff like so. So when you see stuff like this, or like if you see it going all the way from level 10 to 60, that means that this was normally a low level area, but because depending on what level you were, the mobs in those areas will adjust their level to be your level, so that way it'll be, it'll be basically a challenge, not a challenge. It will still, be relevant to you. So instead of this just being a level 10 area, 10 to 15 area, you can come back here at any levels under 60, and it'll be the mobs and the quests and stuff like that will still be relevant to help you level up. Like as you get. Yeah, this was an adjustment they did a couple years ago. Okay, I already hit 50. Nice. Oh, why'd you attack it? Okay, now that I hit 50, do I have enough? I have enough points. I do have enough points. There we go. we go. So with this new spell that I just learned, Penance, I can use it to heal, but I can also use it to attack. This is launches a volley of holy light at the target, causing holy damage to an enemy, or healing to an ally instantly. So this does both damage and healing, which is gonna be very useful. Okay. There we go. Okay. Penance. Nice. Look at. Okay. So now it should be stronger now. Like the one thing that I miss about the old World of Warcraft class progression is the class quests. So instead, when you level up, instead of like unlocking a spell or choosing a spell that you want and stuff like that, you would go to a particular NPC who was the same class as you, and they're basically trainers. They were class trainers, and you would purchase skills from them. And at I think it was like every 5 levels or every 10 levels, you have to do a quest, and the quest also unlocks a spell or an ability or something like that. That's the one thing I missed about. That's the one thing that I miss about the about old school. Is the class quests. I don't want to drop my intelligence, even though the spell power plus is good. I don't want to drop my intelligence, because the intelligence also so intelligence it increases mana, and it increases critical hits, and if I were to switch this out, which will lower my intelligence, I would have less mana, and I don't want to do that. I want to have enough mana that I can blast shit out. Okay. Activate a mythic scroll and a mythic enchantment altar. I'm not sure. Okay, let us head into town. Oh wait, what am I doing? I have spells. I have teleport spell. Ooh.
Regret founding? Note. Terms often spoken by successful Chinese businessmen. And so on at the tips of his fingertips after having been exposed to them for so long. No big deal. The village chief nearly threw up blood upon hearing this. The total area of land farmed by more than 20 families in Stone Village only added up to about 15 hectares. Moreover, in the past years, those 15 hectares of farmland would suffice for the entire village, even after the deduction of farm rent. But now, Shun had gotten a hold of a dozen shops and around 50 hectares of good lands at once, and it was no big deal. Shun smiled without saying a word. Having seen the immense wealth inside the secret chamber, the Wang's assets were indeed no big deal. In fact, apart from the Wang's assets, he had also seized half of the Zhao's assets. The Zhao's were tremendously powerful.
Yeah, it took a while for you guys to catch up.
Even that mere half of their assets were more abundant than the 50 hectares and the dozen shops that the Wangs owned. Qin, you didn't get injured, did you? Qin Ro wasn't bothered by the assets that Qin had mentioned. Instead, she looked her son up and down with a thorough glance, only beginning to smile when she saw that her son was perfectly unscathed. What could happen to me? I'm an immortal now. As he spoke, Chin stuck out his palm and a flame leaped out from his palm, which frightened the village chief so much that he nearly knelt down. I never thought an immortal would ever come from our stone village. Please bless us, ancestors. Let's call it Immortal Village from now. The village chief mumbled under his breath in a dumbfounded manner, but the looks in Shan and Ro's eyes turned complicated as they looked at Chin. Haha, why are you looking at me like that? I'm still your son despite being an immortal. Do you think I'll fight back if you hit me? Chin withdrew the flame and grinned. Chun, are you leaving soon? I've never heard of any immortals who have stayed in a small village, Ro asked in a soft voice, her eyes filled with sadness and reluctance. Shan, on the other hand, was wearing a serious look, pondering something. Chin's expression turned solemn when he saw the looks on their faces. He had to tell his parents about his plans on going for cultivation sooner or later, so he might as well be honest with them now. Yes, I have to arrive at the G-State City by the 1st of August. Counting down the days, I'll have to set off about 6 or 7 days from now. The G-State City was the capital of the state. Chin had no idea where it was, but according to Zhang Ji, it would take at least 10 days to travel from Sichuan County to the G-State City, even by horse carriage. Hence, he had to begin the journey around the 20th of August. Upon hearing this, Ro seemed to have something to say, but she bit her tongue. Beside her, Shan heaved a deep sigh. It's good to go out there and see the world. I went out to serve the military for a few years too, didn't I? The outside world really isn't something that Sichuan County can compare to. The people out there are way smarter than people in small counties. Chin, while you're outside, always remember, never let your guard down for anyone. Chin nodded at that. However, he felt absolutely confident inside. Could the people out there be so brilliant that they could rival a time traveler like him, who had been edified by modern civilization? It was the people out there who shouldn't let their guards down. Otherwise, they would suffer the cruelty of society. All right, Dad, Mom, I'm not leaving right now, am I? Don't be in a hurry to feel sad right now. The most important thing at the moment is to pack our things, so we can move to the county town. As he spoke, Chin did not bother with his parents' response, holding their hands and running back home. Upon returning home, he was greeted by the broken windows of the earth house. Chin did not find it shabby. Rather, he felt warm and welcomed. His parents were packing things inside the house when Chin came to the pig pen secretively. Oink, oink. Lao He had become more and more like a dog somehow. Upon sensing Chin's movements, he rolled to his side and stood up in the pen. Not only was he squealing, he was also wagging his little curly tail. Chin walked up to the pen and patted Lao He on the head. As usual, Lao He responded with a satisfied look. Seeing this, Chin teased him, Lao He, we will be moving houses soon. To celebrate this major event, we have invited all the villagers to a meal. How about contributing your fat flesh? Ike, Ike. Lao He squealed a couple of times and trod to the innermost part of the pen. As he walked, he turned around to cast a glance at Chin, looking like a warrior that had been forced to join the front line. His somberness couldn't be overstated. Finally, Lao He trod to the corner of the pen and slowly lay down on his stomach after releasing a long sigh. He blinked a few times, looking extremely pathetic. Enough, I was just fooling you. Chin couldn't help but laugh. Lying there, Lao He seemed to have understood Chin's words. He sprang up at once, hurrying over to Chin obediently. Seeing this, Chin questioned in his mind, is there any living thing in the nearest 15 meters that can eat that inner elixir? Yes, there is. It is the slightly mutated pig in front of you, host. Upon hearing the system's response, Chin took out the inner elixir and placed it in front of Lao He. Lao He was a loyal pig. Even if he became humanized, he wouldn't harm his family, would he? As the thought occurred to him, he looked towards Lao He very solemnly. Lao He, I'm giving you a chance. After eating this inner elixir, you will be endowed with a whole different life. Perhaps you will lose this carefree life that you've been living. You might start experiencing lots of sorrow and worries. Nonetheless, from now on, you will possess power that far surpasses that of ordinary pigs. Oink! Before Chin could finish his words, Lao He shrank back into the corner. His eyes were filled with inexplicable shock and horror, even more intense than before. As he stared at the inner elixir, it seemed as though he was looking at a poison that would kill him at the first sip. Upon seeing this, Chin's face turned extremely gloomy. D a minute. He forgot how much Lao He relished and longed for a life of just idling around and killing time. If he had known it earlier, he would have made Lao He drink it straight away. What were all those explanations for? Lao He, remember you're a pig with dreams. Chun Chun uttered angrily, hopping into the pig pen. However, Lao He ignored him completely, turning his head to the corner of the wall, his buttocks facing Chun Chun. Lao He, I was lying to you. What I have in my hand is some delicious pig food that I brought from the county town just for you. Lao He still didn't respond. It's really tasty. Lao He wagged his tail, communicating his refusal. Chun Chun was speechless. This pig was smarter than Zhang Ji. In the midst of his desperation, an idea hit him. He had no choice but to shout out, Lao He, the sound next door has escaped her pin. Upon hearing this, Lao He turned his head around subconsciously. Seizing the opportunity, Chun Chun moved nimbly and stuffed the inner elixir into Lao He's mouth. Lao He's eyes were filled with despair. They showed an endless longing for an idle, carefree life without purpose. Before he could spit it out, Chun Chun lifted his. Lao He's throat rolled for a while, gulping down the elixir naturally. Chun Chun loosened his grip when he saw that all of it was consumed. Lao He stood there in a crestfallen state, as if he had lost his most valuable possession. Chun Chun sneered upon seeing the look on his face. I have to work hard for cultivation, while you're thinking of wasting your life? Killing time like that? No way. The pigpen became silent after a moment. Chun Chun sat outside it, watching Lao He with a look of confusion on his face. Lao He stood there, not daring to move. It was looking around with wide eyes, as if something terrible would happen. Yet, the changes he was imagining did not appear.
Yeah, let's see if we can get
Man
something
and pig
good.
watched each other like this for a while, until they could no longer stand it. Lao He moved slightly, but found everything as usual. Suddenly, it became happy, rolling in the pig pen, kicking all fours, and getting up off of the ground. Boom. As a roar sounded, the pig pen collapsed right under Chen Chin's shocked gaze. Lao He, who had jumped up unexpectedly, flew 7 or 8 meters into the air. What
Ooh,
the? Chen Chin cried and
glow
backed
of
up
light
2
just now,
steps.
so that means something's
Plop.
good.
With a muffled sound, Lao He fell to the ground. It was stunned, its face showing utter confusion. Maybe the inner elixir has continuous power.
Okay,
Chen
what is
Chin
the
thought
good
to
thing that we
himself
get?
as he looked at Lao He, who was sitting on the ground.
Ooh, shiny.
After all, the power of a creature with 200 years
Shiny.
of cultivation wasn't very easily
That
absorbed.
is cool.
It would be
Shiny
normal
Machamp.
for the process to take 8 or 10
That's
years.
awesome.
But if right after
This is
taking
my.
it, Lao He could already
I've
jump
gotten a
so
few
high,
shinies.
then maybe it could touch the
I already
heavens
have
in
a
the
shiny
future.
Machamp, but this
As
is
he
a
imagined the
new
scene,
design.
Chin Chin smiled. He walked
this-
to
I
Lao
don't
He
have this-
and
this
patted his
particular
head
design.
comfortingly. Lao He, take care of yourself. After patting Lao He, Chin Chin ignored it, humming a little song as he went inside the house, leaving Lao He staring at his shabby den. Several days later, Chin Chin moved his family into the brand new Zhao Mansion. Of course, at this time, the Zhao Mansion has been renamed the Qin Mansion. Although this house was
Is
much
that new
smaller than the
Pokemon?
county magistrate's
Um,
mansion,
So
it had no problem
this
housing
is
50
this is an
or
old
60
Pokemon
people.
from the
It
first
would be
generation.
pointless for a
It's
family
just
of
that
3 to live in such a large place.
this is a
So Chin
shiny
Chin paid
version.
high wages to young people from Stone Village, who would be
The
caretakers
shiny
of his home.
version is
At the
a
same
different
time,
color
quite a
from
few
what
women were
they
hired to
normally
do
are.
sewing
For
work.
instance,
Together with the maids provided by the
Um,
Zhang family, the place suddenly looked full. Of course, in addition
let's
to
see,
human living
where is it?
quarters,
Where is
Lao
it?
He was also given a large pig pen, which was as big as Chin Chin's previous home. However, Lao He wasn't happy. In the past few days, he was either eating or sleeping, as if he was afraid that he'd forget his original intention of being a pig. Chin Chin didn't bother Lao He. He didn't expect the inner elixir to transform Lao He into a diligent cultivator anyway. If Lao He could occasionally guard his home, that would be good enough. After setting up his family, Chin Chin went to the market to buy some expensive outfits.
let's
After
see.
putting on the clothing, his overall style jumped from 85 to 99 points. Looking at the handsome young man in white reflected back to him from the big, bronze mirror
So
at the
this is
tailor,
what it normally
Chin Chin
looks
couldn't
like.
help but ask in
It's
his
kind of
mind,
a
system,
bluish,
within 15
a
meters
grayish,
of this area,
bluish color.
who has the most
That's what
style?
it normally looks
It's
like.
you,
But
the host.
the shiny
Well said.
version is a
Switching
green
back to
color.
reality, he ordered, shopkeeper, wrap up all the silk and satin in your shop and send it to the Chin house. Chin
let's
Chin
see.
waved his hand and told the shop owner. The shopkeeper was shocked, asking tentatively, the Chin house?
So yeah,
The newly arrived Chin family? Yes.
these
Sir,
are all
you are.
the
I am
shinies.
Chin Chin, he answered honestly. The shopkeeper immediately ran out from
This one is
behind
kind
the
of
counter
a
when he heard
brownish
those
one,
words.
a brownish color,
Smiling, he
rather than
said,
it being
"Master
white,
Chin,
because it's
don't
normally
kid me.
white.
You are the owner of our shop.
Mm.
If you need anything, just let us know. We will bring it over. there's no need to
Then you
trouble
got
yourself.
Charizard,
Shinshin frowned
which
upon
is
hearing
usually
this.
a
My
reddish,
family owns the
orangish
shop?
looking color. This
Indeed.
one is black,
The
the
14
shiny
shops on this
Charizard.
block are all yours as well, the shopkeeper said with envy. All smiles, Shinshin stated, in that case, bring 1/3 of the stock to the Chin family. Yes,
The
right away,
Executor.
the shopkeeper answered.
Instead of it being
Shinshin left the shop with satisfaction after
green
hearing this.
leaves at the
Next,
top, the
he
leaves
walked
are
around
brown,
on that street
and the
for a
body
while,
is a kind
his
of
smile becoming
yellowish
brighter.
color rather
The
than
entertainment venues, especially,
gray
brought him
color.
joy. When he first came here in the middle of the night, it was to pick up money. It was as if he was stealing things.
But yeah,
He was
these
afraid
are
to be seen.
these are all old
Couldn't he would be the
Pokemons.
owner of
It's
all of
just
these
that
shops one day. After
that
some
one
more
was a
time
shiny.
spent marveling, Shinshin walked back home
Okay,
with a
let's
lot
see.
of
I
packages.
got one more
Before he
free
arrived
pack
home,
open.
he saw a carriage
One
parked
more
at the
free
door,
open
the
pack.
decoration indicating it was a Zhang family
let's-
carriage. Shinshin understood. Since he had moved into his new home, Zhang Ji had come to offer his congratulations. It was
Let's see
typical.
what I can get.
As for the carriage, it was probably carrying gifts. This Zhang Ji, while a little stupid, had decent character. He respected him very much, maybe even to a fanatical level. Maybe I shouldn't bamboozle him so much in the future, Shinshin pondered, feeling a little embarrassed. After sighing, he walked towards the house. As
Okay,
soon as he walked through the
let's see
entrance,
what
a young man dressed
we
in
can get.
sackcloth and leaning on crutches greeted him.
Ooh,
Brother Chin,
a
I'm here to
backwards pack.
congratulate you on
I
your
always
move.
go for the backwards
Hearing
pack
this
if I see
familiar
one.
tone, Shinshin rubbed his eyes and said in disbelief, "Dear brother?" To be honest, if it weren't for Zhang Ji's voice, he wouldn't be able to tell who the young man in front of him was. Just a few days ago, Zhang Ji was a stylish young man with at least 85 or 90 points. But now, he had a limp.
Okay,
Most of his hair was chopped
nothing
off,
new. I
and there were a
have all
few
of
scars
these.
on his face. Adding in the sackcloth, he looked like a refugee. Seeing Shinshin dressed all in white, Zhang Ji explained in embarrassment. Earlier, when I saw Brother Chin dressed in a sackcloth, I thought that Brother Chin must wear such clothes to temper your will, so I asked someone to make a set for me. Shinshin was speechless for a long time before asking, "Then what's the matter with your leg? And the wound on your face? Who beat you? Tell Big Brother. Big Brother will avenge you." Zhang Ji was even more ashamed when he heard this, his face flushing red. "Brother Chin, I was greatly inspired by your story about the baby eagle that day, and since my light work isn't very good, I just..." When Shinshin heard this, he almost lost his breath. He asked in shock, You didn't jump off a Blackwind cliff, did you?" "No. Your little brother went to Blackwind Cliff, but I was ashamed. In terms of willpower, I'm not as good as Brother Chin, so I didn't dare jump from there after all. In the end, I went to Little Dragon Mountain, just outside the county, and only then did I have the courage to try it. Compared to Brother Chin, I actually tied a rope to my waist." Zhang Ji became even more ashamed after he admitted this. He thought of Shinshin leaping down without any hesitation on that day, his admiration for him beyond words. Shinshin had no idea what to say. Although Little Dragon Mountain was only a small hill, it was still around 100 meters high. God might take care of you, but you shouldn't abuse that blessing. Look at him. He broke a leg, even with a rope tied to him. This proved that people's luck could be exhausted, right? Seeing Shinshin's serious expression, Zhang Ji hurriedly added on, "Brother Chin, you know what? This method really works. I gained a deep understanding of light work when I was falling. When my legs get better, my light work will definitely improve a lot." Shinshin held his breath and ignored his words, patting Zhang Ji on the shoulder and preparing to educate him. If he didn't, and this could really got himself killed one day, he would definitely feel guilty. However, Zhang Ji suddenly pointed to the corner of the wall and smiled, saying, "Brother Chin, your little brother isn't talented, and he didn't dare jump off of Blackwind Cliff. But guess what? I found 2 large Racier mushrooms on the rock wall of Little Dragon Mountain. I brought one here to Brother Chin as a gift." Shinshin looked in the direction he was pointing towards and saw the huge Racier mushroom. It was purple in the middle and could almost be used as an umbrella. Looking at Zhang Ji, who was a little embarrassed, there were mixed feelings present in his heart. At that moment, he let out the breath he was holding. "Brother Chin, don't you find it weird that such a massive Ganoderma can be found in that stone gap at Little Dragon Mountain? According to my father, if one were to sell a Ganoderma of this size at the capital, one can buy the Zhang family several times over." Zhang Ji was getting more and more excited as he talked, his face full of surprise, as if he never knew how good his luck was. Shinshin suppressed his desire to beat him and replied, "Indeed, but if you were to give me such a precious thing, Brother Chin, were it not for your inspiration, how could I have found such a treasure? You definitely deserve one. Also, no price from the Ganoderma is worth our brotherhood." Zhang Ji's smile vanished. There was only seriousness left. Qinshin felt somewhat helpless in this turn of events. He suspected that if he were to sell Zhang Ji one day, Zhang Ji would still count money for him. He even felt somewhat sorry. He was ultimately something of a sympathetic person. Thinking of this, he talked to Zhang Ji seriously. Brother, don't do dangerous things like jumping from a cliff. There is no need for that. Zhang Ji's head dropped at those words. He sighed and responded, I understand. I have only a tiny fraction of your qualifications, and that some means of practice are possible for Brother Qin, but not me. Unwise imitation would not render any good. Qinshin had no words. This dude suddenly became self-abased. Let's talk about that later. Our current priority is our trip to cultivation. We are leaving Sichuan County in a few days, so some preparation is clearly needed. Agreed. I will follow all instructions coming from Brother Qin. Afterwards, the two entered the hall to discuss the trip to Jizhou. Several days later, a calm day arrived. Over the course of these last few days, news of a ferry in the Qin family spread across the entirety of Sichuan County. Additionally, the Zhang and Qins of the county had made an alliance, calming the chaos-ridden county immediately. Everybody gave their highest respect to this newly risen family. After all, fairies were beyond horse fans. It's rumored that the
there's no
Zhaos,
guarantee
with all of
that
their
you
might,
will get it because
were
there's
crushed
other
with
people
almost no
who's
resistance in front of the Qin's
trying to
ferry,
get
vanishing without a hint. But beyond the
teleports
massive
as well.
knowledge, it was on this day,
So you're gonna be
on the
basically
road
fighting
outside
with other people to
Sichuan
try and
County,
get the
that several well-prepared wagons
the
were about to
teleports.
depart. Father,
But yeah, it
mother,
is a very
no need to worry about
simple
With some
way
more
to make.
cultivation, I can fly back home whenever.
It's
wherever
very
I
simple
please.
to
Qinshin
make
spoke
your.
proudly to his parents, who were seeing him off. Today was the day he and Zhang Ji departed for Jizhou City. Xiaoqin, take good care of yourself outside. Qin Ro's face was full of worries. Of course, all mothers worry for their traveling sons. Are you not assured by my methods of doing things? Do take good care of Lao He. He may be up to some changes, but don't be frightened by it. Qinshin gave Qinshan and Qin Ro much relief with his light mood and his cheerful face. On the other hand, Zhang Ji was crying with father as if it was their last encounter. Nearly a quarter of an hour later, Zhang Ji finally returned to the group. The team consisted of 3 wagons, one filled with goods needed for the trip and 2 empty ones. In addition, there are 3 grooms and 2 bodyguards. That brought the group to a total of 7 people. Brother Qin, let's go. I wonder if I can even make my trip
I feel
back.
like I need to use the
Zhang Ji's
bathroom.
eyes were red from crying. He rode on the horse, face full of anxiety due to the impending long trip. Qinshin smiled but didn't speak. Given Zhang Ji's luck, he very much suspected that even if he couldn't return, this lad surely would. After everybody was on the horse, Qinshin sent his parents goodbye. Father, mother, I will be going. Take good care of yourselves when at home. Bye. Maybe you can even bring back a wife. Haha. We may even bring back a fairy, Qinshin responded with a laugh. As he prepared to steer his horse for departure, Mrs. Zhang suddenly spoke to him. Mr. Chun, my son Ji has a track record of being dull. He may need special attention and assistance from you, so please help him. Thank you very much. Zhang Ji's face flushed upon hearing this. In his opinion, when far from Qinshan, he was a clever man that could remember anything that passed by his eyes. How was he dull? According to his mother's words. How was he associated with dull in any way? Mrs. Zhang, please be assured. Zhang Ji is my brother, and I will certainly take care of him, Qinshin promised in a smile. After the long pre-departure talks, Qinshin and Zhang Ji finally left Sichuan County, on their way leading to
I need to
Jizhou.
think about
Upon
unlocking
departing Sichuan County, Qinshin began humming music. This outside
clearing
world
out
was
the map.
indeed much different from Sichuan County. With the high skies and wide seas, countless treasures and opportunities awaited him in his heart. These expectations
I
overwhelmed
think I need
any
to-
anxiety due to his
I think I
departure.
need to poop.
He longed to pick up some ultimate good and jump dozens of levels in cultivation. Brother Qin, why would you take 2 empty wagons? Will we meet anybody? After some time walking, Zhang Ji finally asked the question in his heart. Qinshin responded, we will pass by many places on the way, so we clearly need to buy things. So that's why, Zhang Ji muttered, considering the answer. At this time, Qinshin's face suddenly turned away. He then jumped down from the horse and into the roadside.
Okay, I'm probably gonna end the stream for a little bit. I have not eaten for the morning either, so I think I'm going to Wordplay 2. Thank you so much for the follow. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, sorry, I'm gonna be ending the stream for a little bit. but I will be back on in a couple hours. I don't I'll be streaming a different game then, which is Final Fantasy 11. But I will be back in a bit. Armadeus, I'll see you in a bit. Oh shit, I forgot to check out the pictures that you sent of the farm. Um, to Elra, Jimmy, thank you so much for the follow. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. But I will I will be starting up the stream in a little bit again. But I'm gonna hop off for a little bit. Amadeus, I'll see you. I'll hit you up in a bit. See if you want to level up some level up. No, if you want to if you're free enough that you can help me with a couple of those headstones in Final Fantasy 11, so I can try and get that mission completed. And afterwards, if you want to get some levels, you can get some levels. But I will, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll hit you up when I'm gonna hop on. I will talk to you in a bit. Like if yeah, I'll see you. Peace.